Good evening. It's a couple of minutes past 5. Planning Commission of the City of Lancaster will please come to order tonight. Our invocation will be offered by Vice Chair Hall. Commissioner Smith will lead us in the pledge. So if you'd all please stand.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Thank you for your blessings. May you continue to bless America. Thank you, God, for allowing us these public meetings, giving us time to discuss without conflict these important issues. Thank you for staff that prepares these meetings. Give guidance to this commission to make proper decisions. Bless this community for voting for the leadership that charts the course we take. God, hold Heather Hare in your arms. Her life was ended so soon, and help console her family. Bless Lieutenant Jay Cullen and Trooper Burl Bates for their untimely sacrifice. Hold and comfort the community they served and their families. Calm the tensions that arose. Protect all our police from harm. Thank you for God for those that serve our country, our military, fire departments, our country's elected leadership. May you guide them and keep them safe as they do their job. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Please place your right hand over your heart and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May I have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Diana Cook.
Present.
Commissioner Cassandra Harvey.
Present.
Commissioner Drew Mercy.
Present.
Commissioner Sandy Smith.
Here.
Vice Chair Randy Hall.
Here.
Chairman James Vose.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. A couple of announcements. Earlier, 2.5, 3 weeks ago, former Commissioner Coronado resigned from this group, and the City Council will be taking up applications for the position of Commissioner at their next meeting in September. Just give you all a little, some of you I'm sure have not been to a Planning Commission meeting in the City of Lancaster, so I'll try to outline for you sort of the rules of the road, if you will. Typically, projects that come before us are discretionary. This commission operates under the auspices of the Municipal Code 17, which is primarily land use, as well as Municipal Code 5, which has a lot to do with licensing and permitting. The decisions we make are discretionary. We typically meet the week prior to this meeting here in this chamber in a public setting. However, we do not deliberate. We meet with our colleagues here and our staff. We review the proposed agenda, and we have our questions asked and answered. So when items come before us, it may seem routine to you that we don't necessarily discuss a lot of information that's provided to us, mainly because we've already seen it and reviewed it, and we're prepared to take action. On other items where there are public hearings, we typically give the applicant and their representative, ever how many there may be, an opportunity to address the commission and give us their information regarding their proposed project. Staff gives us a staff report. We may ask questions of the applicant. We may respond to the applicant, or we may not. We also invite the public to fill out a speaker's card for any item they wish to address the commission on. And once the staff report is given and the applicants complete their remarks, we give individual public the opportunity to address us for a period of 3 minutes. At the end of the public comments, then we give the applicant an opportunity to rebut. We also may ask questions of folks who come before us to clarify what their remarks may be. It's not an adversarial situation. Matter of fact, we all consider you and us our friends and neighbors. So just relax, and if you have something on your mind, please feel free to express it at the podium. We would appreciate that you don't shout out during the meeting or disrupt the proceeding. For the record, we have received a number of items in our packet prior to the meeting and here tonight. Part of what we have in our agenda, which is in a binder at the rear of the chamber as well as published online, there would be a project location map identifying the locations of the proposed projects before us tonight. The actual individual applicants who have made application, who they are, and who they may represent, our agenda, of course, and then any modifications to our agenda, and there have been some which have also been handed out and published. We've also had an amendment to our minutes. On page 3, we had a condition modified on conditional use permit 17-20, which is item 6, and item 8, conditional use permit 17-17. A portion of the staff report was amended on page 5. We've also received what we call uncontested letters. These are letters that we received from applicants in advance of the meeting indicating they agree with the proposed staff recommendations that have been recommended to us for approval. Typically the revised conditions and whatever else we may have in our packets. Additionally, a couple of other items I'd like to mention. Actually, one for the public that's here, item conditional use permit 17, excuse me, beg your pardon. This is tentative track map number 66680 and parcel map 69747, which is item 5E on our agenda. The applicant has requested a continuance on the action item, so that action item would not be heard tonight, it would be continued. So if anyone's here to speak on that, you'll certainly have the opportunity to, but we don't anticipate taking action other than to continue that tonight. When we get to items for public hearing, this would relate to residential projects, which I will mention again when we get to it. The City Council at their meeting last Tuesday tasked this commission with the responsibility to initiate what's known as Community Benefits Program. This is a program that their applicant or their successor in interest would be required to negotiate in good faith for the creation of and the participation in a community benefits agreement or program for their individual residential projects. So those applicants tonight that are here relative to residential projects that we will be considering will be asked as an added condition to agree to that voluntarily. And I will ask each applicant or their representative to express that to us at the podium tonight, if they do or they don't. Typically, a community benefits program requires, for discussion at least, and to sit at the table and participate in a discussion relative to local hiring of construction trades, possible negotiation with labor organizations. The goal is primarily to eliminate substandard construction work in residential construction, and to eliminate construction defects that some feel happened during the last major construction boom for residential projects. It also encourages the creation of local trained workforce. The whole idea is to benefit the community as a whole and future homeowners, certainly, and to create a level playing field for residential construction. All residential developers will be invited to participate, and they will all have equal access to the discussion. However, the ultimate decisions may not necessarily be considered equitable. This commission will take up the matter and create an ordinance to recommend to the City Council, and ultimately the City Council will may establish an ordinance creating, in effect, a community benefits program affecting the entire community for residential development. And as I mentioned, it will be imposed on all pending applications before the commission, residential applications. So with that long-winded opening, we'll begin our meeting. Consent calendar is our first item. So may we have a motion, please?
I move to approve the minutes from the regular meeting of July 17th, 2017.
As amended.
As amended, yeah.
As amended, please.
Second.
Thank you. Please vote. You moved. The other one.
Motion passes 5-0 with one abstention. Is that correct?
Say again?
5-0 with one abstention.
All right,
That's
thank
correct.
you. We're really not playing musical chairs, are we?
No.
Okay. All right, then. Ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The next item is item number 2, which is a continued public hearing. Continued public hearing means the public hearing has remained open since the last hearing. Item number 2, the application is GID Lancaster 80 LLC, and I believe we've received a request to continue this matter for another meeting. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
All right. Any questions from anyone? Do we have any speakers?
Yes, you do have a speaker listed for item number 2, Mr. Chairman.
We do.
Yes. Fran Sarasaris.
Oh, Fran. Welcome. Good evening and welcome.
Allowing me to speak. I just have a real, Chairman, Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Fran Sarasaris. And I just had a quick question. It's on this, a clarification actually. When it says a drainage basin. Does that drainage basin go into the sewer system, or how does that work?
Well, our city engineer will respond, but the drainage basin is for flood control purposes. It doesn't go into the sewer system, it goes into the flood control system.
I'm sorry.
Doesn't go into the sewer system, it
system?
goes into the flood control system.
Oh, I see, flood control. So it does drain into a larger tank and another flow. Okay. It doesn't.
It's part of the drainage, yeah.
Okay, that's all I needed to know. Thank you. God bless everybody.
All right, thank you.
Did I lock you in?
Yeah, you sure did.
How about now? Did you bring this one too?
Thank you.
I'm gonna blame it on you.
Is that the only speaker?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. All right, then. So the public hearing will remain open, and the motion would be to continue to the next regular meeting.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing to September 18th, 2017 Planning Commission meeting to give the applicant more time to complete the final modifications.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Anything further? Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next item is item number 3. This is General Plan Amendment 1704 and Draft Master Plan of Complete Streets, an amendment to Chapter 16-20 of the subdivision ordinance. The applicant is the City of Lancaster. Mr. Ludicky.
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, we've had this agenda item in front of you for several months. Just to reiterate, the goal of the Complete Streets Master Plan is to change the way that the city looks at the design of its streets and the various metrics that it uses to assess their operation. The goal of that is to create a situation where we have a lot more flexibility in how to design streets that are more context sensitive, that can address issues such as safety and speed, as well as dealing with issues such as capacity. The need for the amendment to the general plan is to ensure two things. Number one, that we have the proper metrics in place to achieve that evaluation. And the second thing, to line up with state law requirements that now ask jurisdictions to include complete streets policies within their general plan. And as we've discussed, there are a number of agencies that fund or oversee funding of transportation improvements that the requirement for having in place complete streets policies is going to now be a precursor to funding. In other words, that you have to have that in place in order to compete for certain funding on transportation improvements. I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you might have. We
Thank
have
you.
no speakers cards on the item.
There may be some.
The plan for physical mobility, is that a work in progress, or is that just, it looks like it's a supporting document for complete streets?
It's the general plan. People who've worked with planning for a while would say that that's the circulation element of the general plan. The city, when it adopted its general plan, called that the Plan for Physical Mobility. What we gave you was kind of a strike-through version so that you could see where the changes are being proposed. In a sense, yes, it is a support document to the Master Plan of Complete Streets, but in the way the state of California looks at the city's general plan, it is really the overriding policy document that provides guidance for how the city will develop and grow in the future. So I think that it's fair to say it kind of functions in both those roles as proposed.
Considering growth in the future, there's always a few people that are concerned about bike lanes, road diets, roundabouts. Is part of the the complete street's going to be education of the public somehow?
Yes, I think that we'll continue to do that because obviously there are safety and other concerns that accrue not just to pedestrians or transit users or bicyclists, but actually to motorists themselves in terms of the design of the streets. I would also reiterate, and I think our city engineer has pointed this out before, that as part of this plan, the city ran a traffic model for the year 2035. And what that does is it projects what we feel are going to be volumes on streets at that particular time. So it allows us to identify streets and get the proper design in place, early on. So I guess I would say that we're not out just sort of picking things out of the air in terms of road diets or intersection improvements or things of that type. Our goal is to identify where we do have problems, make sure that we have the right information so that we can create the proper design in the case of retrofits, or as you saw in the plan for the CV Communities projects, design the streets properly at the start to include the values of safety and slower speeds on them.
Considering the value of safety, on page 35, it was talking about sidewalk extensions for restaurants, and because of the recent activity we've had where cars have been running into people on purpose, it seems like, should those buffering elements be strong enough to protect patrons? I mean, just a slight change in how they were made could help with that. I understand the roads are going to be slow
Right.
from being down, but you're still talking a multi-ton vehicle.
Right. Yeah, and that's back to, I think, it's a very good example of this context approach that we're looking at. You want to make sure that obviously your street design lines up with what you're doing on the edges of the street, if you will. And if you have a situation such as we have on Lancaster Boulevard, where through your design you've encouraged a much slower speed, that's a far different situation than, say, out on a 6-lane highway, where, quite frankly, eating outdoors may not even be that pleasant. You may create another location. But it once again also speaks to, how do you transition these areas over time? How do you make sure that you line up your street improvements with what you really want to achieve in terms of the land use along them? And
It's sure a radical departure from the way we've developed in the past. I really look forward to the changes.
yeah, I think the encouraging thing, and the more research that at least I do, the traffic engineering and transportation professions are beginning to shift that way also, for a lot of different reasons: cost, safety, and other types of factors.
I'd highly recommend people read the document or at least flip through it. It's quite informative. That's all I have.
Thank you. The proposed capital improvements through the Caltrans grant and other resources that was presented to the City Council Tuesday night talked about configuration of streets adjacent to the on and off ramps of various major streets: Avenue M, Avenue L, K, J, and G, I think it was. So without the adoption of this master plan, will that impact the design of those streets, or are we anticipating including the recommended street designs in those improvements?
Yeah, on specific locations, the city engineer can certainly answer it, but I'll tell you what in general the city has been doing in the design of the Measure R projects. We want to make sure that our local values for street design are included in what happens. And while that may sound like certainly that's what you should do, the fact is that historically Caltrans has had a great deal of say over what happens on local street systems further away from interchanges than you might think. So what we've tried to do, and this would certainly bolster that effort, is to make sure that improvements that are looked at as part of Measure R enhance our overall approach to transportation and street design, rather than simply match up with a Caltrans standard, for example, that may not be properly applied. I'll use that term. I don't know, Trelise, if you want to add anything to that.
We've been currently looking at those projects right now in the environmental phase and early design phase, and we're making sure that all the way that they're being designed meets all of the master plans that we have. So master plan of complete streets, safe routes to school, all those master plans, those techniques are being incorporated into those designs.
As Vice Chair Hall pointed out, the objective is not necessarily to move traffic faster. It would be to move traffic safer and potentially slower. Would that be a fair assessment?
That is a fair assessment.
And how much money are we talking about? Measure R was like $65 million and plus other resource, almost $90 million project, including the off-ramp, the five off-ramps, bridges and otherwise, plus street improvements within up to a mile from those interchanges
It's correct.
over the next, 3 to 4 years?
I think the plan is by 2022, 2023, everything should be done.
Right. Thank you. So getting back to this action item or proposed action item, we've had 4 or 5 public hearings on this. Do we have any speakers tonight? None? So the outreach has nearly run its course then. All right, thank you. What's your pleasure, folks? You want to keep the public hearing open and continue this, or are you ready for action?
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt resolution number 17-21, recommending to the City Council approval of General Plan Amendment number 17-04, the adoption of the City of Lancaster Master Plan of Complete Streets, and an ordinance to amend Chapter 16.20 of the City of Lancaster Municipal Code, subdivision ordinance.
Thank
I'll
you.
second that.
Thank you. So in effect, the public hearing is closed. All right, anything further? Ready to vote? Please vote. Great job as usual, Mr. Ludicky. Thank you.
Staff appreciates that. Motion passes 6-0. We'll let you know when this is scheduled for City Council consideration.
Very good, thank you. All right, item number 4. This is continued public hearing on tentative tract map number 61574, which is United Engineering Group for a 1-year extension. Is the applicant here tonight for this project? Come on up and tell us who you are. And welcome.
Good evening. My name is Bo Cooper. I'm the entitlement manager for United Engineering Group, and I am here on behalf of the applicant. We have received and read all the conditions of approval and submitted an uncontested hearing list. As I was driving and I got here, I read a condition that was being added, and I just wanted to clarify, if I could, the condition for the creation and participation in the community benefits agreement is between essentially the commercial and the residential portions of this project. Is that
Excuse me.
correct? correct?
Ask the question again?
There's an added condition in here that was not in the packet that we
That's
received.
right. You may not have been here when I announced the condition.
I don't think I was, no. I got here about 10 minutes late.
And you were reading while you were driving? No, you were
No,
looking
I
at it
read
on
when
your
I got
screen.
here. I read when I got here.
We've all been guilty of that, haven't we? Yeah. The purpose, the city council has requested this added condition voluntarily to all residential projects.
Of all residential
All
projects.
residential
Okay.
projects, right. And it's a condition to negotiate in good faith relative, and I don't know if you understand what a community benefit program is. It's similar to a workforce agreement.
Right.
So that's the purpose of it. We're asking applicants tonight to agree voluntarily. If you don't understand it and would prefer to continue the item for a month so you can understand it, we can let you do that. If you want to think about it, we'll set it aside and you can come back later tonight, whatever you'd like to do.
Well, with that being the case, it's a citywide, basically
Yes.
a citywide community benefits agreement for, what are the community benefits?
Well, okay, let me see if I can explain it to you. The purpose is, it's multi-level, if you will. The commission has been asked to implement this voluntarily on all residential projects until we consider an ordinance, making it a citywide requirement, which the commission will take up. Basically, it allows the residential development community to meet and confer in good faith to consider local hiring standards for the construction trades, to negotiate with labor organizations. The purpose and goal is to eliminate substandard construction and to eliminate construction defects, which the community felt they had more than a preponderance of during the mid-2006, 7, 8 range when we built a whole lot of residential projects. The idea behind it is really to provide for training and development of skilled trades, really, so that, and local hiring, so we can develop jobs for our community as well as good quality projects.
Okay.
That's kind of the broad brush, if you will. So it's tough to be on the spot. I've been on standing where you stood, and I don't want to put pressure on you. You can make whatever decision you like. We're asking voluntarily.
Right. Well, and in this case, with that being, I mean, that's a potentially a fairly large condition that I would not be doing my job to agree to that condition on my own without conferring with our client first. So I would this time like to request a continuance.
It'd be in your client's best interest then to continue this until the next meeting at least?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Very good. Anything else you'd like to add on the project?
That is all.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, is Mr. Cooper, right?
Yes, correct.
All right. Thank you very much. Have any other speakers on this item?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure. I do have a speaker's card here from a Laura Miller, but does not identify the case.
Oh, no, it's not
Okay. I have no other speaker's cards on this item, but it was just pointed out to me by our principal planner that this case would run out of the 60-day time that the MAP Act sets. You know, if you request an extension, you get an automatic 60 days or until the commission acts. So if the desire of the commission is to hear it in September, I would recommend that you actually grant an extension on the map until your
Yeah,
September
definitely.
meeting.
All right, thank you. And we didn't really hear a staff report on this, but it doesn't matter if we're going to continue it. Right? Okay, we have no other speakers, you said? No. Okay. All right. So the recommendation would be a definitive action to extend to our September, whatever date it is, September 11th? Or 18th, I guess it is.
Right, the September Planning Commission is September 18th.
18th.
The 60 days on their map expires on September 17th, the day before.
But it won't expire if we extend it.
Correct.
So the motion would be to extend the map to September 18th and continue the hearing till September 18th. Right? So we give them one extra day on their map. That would be the motion, if someone would care to offer it.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
It's a cheater way out. That was cheating. Should have typed it.
You guys.
I think Drew had it figured out.
He did. All right, it's been moved and seconded to extend the track map to September 18th, 2017, and continue the action, or continue the hearing on this matter to September 18th, 2017. Clear? Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
We're just making rules as we roll along here. We're having a great time. All right. So, new public hearings. So without objection, a public hearing is open on item 5A through E, which are one-year extensions. The first item, 5A, is tentative track map number 62485. This is Royal Investors Group LLC. Is the applicant's representative here? She is, you are. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners, Chairman Bose, staff. Thank you for having us here this evening. Received that additional condition just as I arrived, about 4:30. So unfortunately, I would also like to ask a continuance. We have two maps tonight before you, 62485 and 64877.
Okay. 62485 and item 5D 64877.
Correct.
You understand what the purpose of this is? I mean,
Correct.
we're here.
I was at City Council hearing last week with the Avanti North project and CB Communities. I think we all just need to get our arms around what this new agreement's going to
It'll be a
encompass.
big table.
It will be. It will be. So we'll be glad to be part of it.
All right, very good.
Okay.
So if that's your request, then
We'd
you'd like it.
Yeah, we'd like to continue until we understand a little
September?
bit more. Yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Have any other, do I have speakers on that? Same issue?
Same issue for number A. E is fine. I'm sorry, D. D is fine. But A expires July 17th, and that automatic 60 days gets us to September again.
So we need,
For A. For D, it expires August 21st, so they're good until October 21st.
so we have to extend the map to September 18th and continue it to September 18th on A. And just continue D till the 18th, right? I'm talking to myself. I think we can take one motion on it, can't we? So, well, two separate action items. We'll take 5A first, which would be to continue, or excuse me, to extend the tentative track map 62485 to September 18th and continue the hearing on the one-year extension on the same map to September 18th. That's the motion. Right?
Perfect motion, so moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, don't ask me to repeat it. Everybody clear? All right, please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right. And I'm assuming, Mr. Ludicky, there's no public comments on any of these.
No, no speakers.
I didn't ask you, but you didn't throw anything over here or wave your flag.
I
or
would have
anything.
told you.
Okay, so we'll take up 5D at the request of the applicant to continue item 5D to September 18th.
Excuse me, Chairman Vose, did you close the public hearing, sir? I'm sorry, I didn't hear whether you did.
On which?
Well, 5A, and did we open and close the public hearing on 5D?
I was mumbling it. You didn't hear me?
I'm sorry, I did not.
I'll speak louder. The public hearing is closed on 5A, but it's still open on 5D. And we're going to take up 5D to continue that to September 18th. Anybody care to offer a motion? You did?
Make a motion to continue 5D to September 18th.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Please vote. Okay. The public hearing is not closed on 5D.
Passes 6-0.
All right. Now, item 5B as in boy, map 63031. This is West Palm Development Corp. is the applicant here. Mr. Malik. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. My name's Carl Malik. I represent item B and C tonight. And given the new voluntary condition, I'd like to have the opportunity to look at it and evaluate it. And if I'd like to request that these be continued or extended till September.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Both of these maps have that same issue,
have what?
have the expiration issue. So they need to be specifically extended to September 18th.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to extend tentative track maps 63031 and 63112 to September 18th and continue the item until the September 18th Planning Commission meeting.
Got it.
Second.
Got it. We good? Public hearing's still open on these? Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Very good. The last item on these public hearings is 5E, like Edward, and the applicant has requested by a recent communication to extend this map till September 18th. Or extend the hearing, I should say, till September 18th. So where does that put us with this one?
This one, the extension dates are fine. It expires August 18th, so the automatic 60 days they get gives us to October 18th.
All right, thank you. So we're ready for a motion.
I move to grant a continuance on resolution number 0754, tentative track number 69747 until the September 18th meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Anything further? Please vote.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next item is item 6. So without objection, the public hearing on this item is open. This is conditional use permit 17-20. The applicant is Charles Worth, and this is a conditional use permit for a gaming arena in the specific plan area 08-01 zone, which is downtown Lancaster. So we have speakers on this item. May I have staff report, please?
Good evening, Chair Vos and Commissioners. I have before you tonight CUP 17-20. The applicant is seeking approval of conditional use permit located at 547 West Lancaster Boulevard to allow a video gaming arcade with an existing 9,850 square foot commercial space. The hours of operation would be Monday through Friday from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. On Saturdays and Sundays, the arcade would be open 24 hours. Any unaccompanied minors shall not be permitted on the premises after 10 p.m. Proposed use would consist of modern and classic gaming systems, custom computers, and virtual reality machines where patrons would play video games and on occasion compete in gaming tournaments. The applicant has installed an alarm system, a motion detection system, and 6 full motion cameras that would be monitored at all times. The Development Services staff will have the ability to require a uniformed security officer if deemed necessary. The applicant would also sell snack items and repair customer equipment. Alcohol is prohibited on the premises at all times. The owner of the facility would be held responsible for policing the patrons, especially during school hours. No minors would be allowed when school is in session during the hours of 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. The floor plan shows a mixture of television screens, gaming tables, gaming chairs, and sofas, which would enhance the overall gaming experience. Staff is recommending approval of the proposed use to allow a gaming arena because it meets all the requirements of the zone, will not adversely affect nearby businesses, and will provide an additional entertainment option on the boulevard. That concludes staff presentation. I'm available for questions.
Thank you. There may be some.
Is there any gambling allowed?
No gambling is allowed.
How would we tell if they use like Bitcoin or something like that, a virtual coin, and then would gamble with something we're not really used to?
The applicant is also here to explain that, but usually that is done through a complaint base. If someone goes in there or if staff goes in there and sees something going on, that's when we would address it. But the applicant would be able to probably explain that a little bit better.
I was going to ask you too. That would be kind of a question for you.
Well, I can tell you from just an investigative and operational compliance issue, and we do that periodically as we've done with internet cafes and such throughout the community, that we can actually operate a sting-type operation with buy money and verify that those conditions are being met. I will say, in reviewing what's been put here as far as the attachment conditions, I believe they'll suffice based on the use as permitted. But again, because of its location and the attraction at certain hours, especially on the weekends, obviously we're going to closely monitor that relationship to the other events that are occurring down the street.
Thank you.
How will homeschool students be dealt with? I mean, obviously we can deal with students who are enrolled, since we know what dates and times public schools are open and private schools, but what about homeschooled students?
Remember, the daytime loitering ordinance relates to all student-age children between those hours. So irregardless if they're in homeschooling or whether they're on some type of extended program or packet program or special needs use or whatever it may be, even when they only report like on the charter school basis, 1 day a week, those hours still apply to any school-age child.
Thank you.
What about like Christmas break and Thanksgiving break? Would that still hold firm, or would those periods be excluded?
Those would be excluded.
I have one more question, Lee. What about security cameras? Do you, would cameras pick up activity as well that you're able to see?
Depending on how they're accessed, whether they're web accessible, and again, on some of the other things that we're bringing up later, that's a condition of that. That would probably be advantageous if there's that situation, and we've done that as well at other locations. I will tell you that just the proximity it's going to get a lot of attention, I believe, from us. Obviously, the concern for law enforcement and for public safety was the gambling issue specifically as it relates to what we've experienced in the past. So again, not being familiar with exactly how this is going to be put together, but knowing as well that, it could be a viable attraction for our youth downtown, and just as long as it's operated in the manner that you put forth through your conditional use permit.
Can I ask you if there's any other businesses on the boulevard that have 24-hour hours?
To my knowledge, no. Sheriff's Department.
And it's pretty close to the site, so.
And the fire department, by the way.
Awesome.
Sometimes.
And ARCO.
And ARCO. Yes, sir.
Isn't there an Anytime Fitness place on the...
Excuse me, Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to interject that Commissioner Cook asked about security cameras. I don't know that that's called out as a condition for the CUP. If that was something that was felt strongly about, we certainly could impose that as a condition on the business license, which with the relatively recent business license ordinance update, we are authorized to impose conditions.
Well, the Christopher provided a link to an entity called Clutch Gaming Arena, which gave us some visuals, at least, on what this business may operate, similar to how it may operate. I don't know. Once the applicant gets a chance to talk to us, we'll find out. But I would be concerned about the ability to monitor with cameras in a theater-type setting. I mean, it's relatively dark inside other than the monitors and screen. I don't know how the effectiveness of that kind of video monitoring, if you will. I mean, I don't know. The exterior, that's a different thing altogether. And that's within the purview of the director relative to public safety, right? Exterior, if in fact we have issues that need to be addressed, then that could be either imposed now or later, right? So.
Can also remind you that, we have a chronic nuisance issue, okay, or attractive nuisance issue. So if it's creating some issue as relates to hours and resource management, especially for a law enforcement response and things, there'll be a warning period and then a citation issued and then removal from that license.
Typical licensing process administration. Okay. All right, we have speakers. The applicant, I'm assuming, is here.
Yes, sir.
Would like to visit with us. Come on down. Tell us who you are.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. Hello, Commissioners. My name is Charles Worth. I am the owner of Spade Fox Gaming Arena, and I am here to address every single one of your concerns.
Well, we're happy to have you here and tell us all about it, since we know very little about your business.
Sure. So generally what it is, it's a community center for kids, teenagers, and young adults. Highly monitored, no tobacco, no alcohol, no gambling. Bitcoin to be monitored through our POS systems. Right now, they can only come up to the front to do anything related to credit cards, money. They can't do anything. Websites are all blocked off. We use a program called GG Leap, which is a brand new program. It was built about 2 or 3 months ago. It's been distributed about 300 to 350 places that are similar to ours throughout the United States. It regulates absolutely everything and makes it pretty much a plug-and-play thing. There won't be, no pornography, no gambling, no anything that children or people anything that people shouldn't be looking at in a public forum, basically, will not be allowed on any of the computers. No gambling, it'll all be regulated. The moment someone does any types of financial transaction, I'm immediately notified on my security, on my stuff, basically. When it comes to minors being allowed in, if they are 12 and under, they must be accompanied by their parent or responsible adult. If they are between 12 and 18 years old, they must have a permission slip signed by those parents, which agrees to all of the school conditions, making sure they're not there during truant hours, making sure they agree that this is not a place they can come to do drugs or alcohol or tobacco or anything like that. We're making sure that if it is a Saturday also making sure that the video games, there's going to be some violence and some bad language in some of those. I can't contain some of those, so that's also to let the parents know that these things are contained in video games. That's just the way it is, basically. On Saturday and Friday nights, there will be a separate form in order for parents, because we will do lock-ins every so often, every month or so, where parents will drop them off. The doors will be locked, and they will not be unlocked unless it is that parent that dropped that kid off in the first place, basically. And basically, it is going to be the most safe place ever for parents to drop off their kids.
Maybe we should get you to do the library computers.
I can do that. You let me know, I can do that.
What is your definition of a responsible adult?
Someone who is 18 and older, generally they need to be I can't make that decision based on a look. They need to be 18 or older. They need to be able to prove that they're 18 and older. If it's their first time, that needs to be their parent they're with, or their parent or guardian needs to be there the first time. If they're coming in like after they've already signed all the paperwork and stuff like that, then they can come in with someone who's 18 or older if they're 12 or younger. If they're 13 and 18, they're free to come in as long as their parents have signed the permission slip.
How do you make your money?
My money will be done through hourly wages. All of the different computers, we'll have retro consoles, VR machines, all be hourly rate. Right now, it looks like it's about $6 per hour to use any of the machines except for the VR machines, and those will run about $12 every 30 minutes or so.
Are you going to run tournaments or?
Yes, there will be tournaments every single day. There will be probably 2 tournaments on Fridays and Saturdays. Those will be given to people who come to use an all-day pass, roughly $20 to $25 or so. They'll get all-day use of all the machines from open to close, and they'll get an entry into that tournament. And the prizes for those tournaments will be games and computer-related, not like money or anything like that. It'll all be computer-related or games or computer peripherals or mouses or keyboards, stuff like that.
Sounds like you just need a malt shop to go with it.
Pretty much. Coke and Monster are also sponsoring us. They're the ones that are outfitting all of our stuff through the store. So that's where retail stuff will be coming through them and whatnot.
So food and beverage is allowed then?
Yes, absolutely. They'll be sold there. They will be prepackaged stuff, not cooked stuff, but candy bars, chips, popcorn, Monster energy drinks, Coke products, stuff like that.
You have an area designated for older folks?
The VR, believe it or not, the VR systems have been way more popular with older generations than younger generations. My dad, I lost him for about 8 or 9 hours in one of the machines where I had to come literally pull it off of him because he was like, I forgot where I was for a little while. Like, he was really excited to play it though. But yes, we'll have all the older machines, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, all the way back to Atari. We'll have all of them, at least one system of everything. Something for everyone.
I was trained on a Philco, but I don't know, but...
Okay, I might not be able to go that far back. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I was thinking maybe you could play tic-tac-toe over there.
I have some questions.
Yes.
What proof are you going to have on this documentation that it's from a parent that's writing the letter for authorization for their child
So
to be
we're
there?
going to make them leave their phone number and email address, and if they come in without the parent with them, we're going to contact that person and be like, are you so-and-so's?
But how do you know you're talking to the parent and you're not talking to an older brother or
There's a little
neighbor?
leeway. We're going to have to use our best judgment with that, and if I feel there's any shadiness or whatnot, then I will just yank it or whatnot. It will be contextual based on if I call that person. But yeah, there really is no way for me to make sure unless that person is physically there for that, really,
And
though.
you said that your audience is primarily young adults and teens?
14 to 35-year-olds is our primary audience.
So do you see a big business plan for 24 hours on the weekend?
Yes. Most competitive and video gamers tend to stay up very late, especially on Fridays and Saturdays, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the morning. And that tends to be when most of the gaming tournaments in Europe and Asia and stuff like that, those continents have had esports gaming in them going for 3, 4, 5 years now, and they have established sporting programs for those things. So that's when most of these tournaments take place, is during those times. It's slowly moving over to America. Los Angeles and Las Vegas are huge hubs, which is why I wanted to use Lancaster as a meeting point between the two hubs, basically. And basically, it's most of those tournaments in Europe, they're on really late at night, and that's where the main focus, so people can come in, watch these tournaments in groups, and have somewhere to hang out that's safe and monitored, and more parents know who they are and whatnot.
How would you feel if we did condition for security cameras?
I thought that was already in here, and I have no problem with that, honestly.
And then I have one last question, and maybe our fire marshal could chime in. Is it legal and safe to do a lockdown for fire purposes?
No, there has to be exiting, but.
Yes. Yeah, the inside, you could still, yes, they wouldn't actually be locked. There would be a person guarding it, basically. So and there was to be the back door would be locked, but the front door exits would be unlocked for emergency, but there would be a person guarding those doors.
And have you had experience operating one of these anywhere before?
No, this is my first business like this. I owned before this a software company where I had a few employees. We made video games, stuff like that. My passion was more in playing and watching other people play, which is why I switched over to this. So this is my first brick and mortar place like this, but this is my passion. I've done this for 15, 20 years, the esports scene, so this is what I do.
Thank you for answering my question.
Absolutely.
I'm going to kind of segue off of one of your questions. How many employees do you have? Because certainly it can't be you there
Currently.
24 hours a day.
No. We currently have 5 employees, and for the grand opening, I have a ton of family members coming to help out for that, basically. But currently, I have myself and five other employees.
And what is their background and training for, kind of put it out there? I mean, 24 hours a day on the boulevard, you may have people wandering in. What kind of training do they have?
So myself and my general manager are ex-military. We both served in the 101st Airborne together. We both served Iraq and Afghanistan, and I have tons of experience in security. I can probably take down anyone who comes through those doors, on all honesty.
Thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
I think that my question really is, if, as I said, you can't be there 24 hours
Sure.
a day, you're not going to be able to be there 7 days a week. If you're not there and your other employee with the military experience isn't there and there are issues.
So our plan for the first month, our 4 employees who are not military background, we're going to be doing basic self-defense with them for the first couple weeks. If that's something they enjoy, we want to make them be able to defend themselves. But there is Chimera Combat, who is also on the boulevard, who has offered us a very awesome discount to come with them to basically get everyone just self-defense. I'm not looking to go beat people up down the boulevard, of course, but I want my employees to be able to protect themselves, and that will be something that I require all my employees, because it is a rough area. There is a lot of homeless in that area, and it's something we've recognized, and it's something I want to clean up completely.
And I think, further than, of course, protecting your employees would be protecting the kids.
Absolutely.
Who have been put in your care by their parents.
Everyone that comes in should absolutely feel safe leaving their children there, absolutely.
And I will attest, Commissioner Cook, to that middle of the night, we used to have a neighbor right behind us, and I wonder why the kids were screaming all night long. It was video games. So.
Question, I think this is a real good innovative business and something that I hope you do very well at. The one question I'd have would just be if you'll, more of a point, just to consider providing some information that's available, particularly to the minors that are there on cyberbullying, as
Yes.
that kind of comes up. I mean, unfortunately, there's some bad folks that ruin what could be good, and I think making this more of a social, video games more of a social activity, I think will be real good, but just to make sure they know that there's resources available.
Does the city have a program like that I could actually piggyback on?
That's a good question.
We have a link on the public safety side of the city. We can certainly discuss that further.
Yeah, that's great.
Can I answer anyone else's questions?
I actually would like to piggyback on something that Commissioner Cook mentioned relative to, when she mentioned to the fire marshal as far as locking the doors. Perhaps, and this is not necessarily me dictating that you put this in the conditions, but perhaps you should consider a crash bar emergency exit as opposed to having to worry about someone manning a door or that sort of thing. A crash bar that it's locked on the outside, and if there were an emergency, they can escape.
That's actually what's there already.
Okay,
It's currently
perfect.
got crash bars on all the doors right now.
Spoken like a military person, thank you.
Anyone else? I hope I answered everyone's questions. Oh,
I think you have. Staff, do you have any questions of the applicant? Mr. DiRico, go ahead.
Based on what has been provided through the CUP and those conditions, the director has the authorization to require security. May I recommend that maybe certain hours on those weekend 24 hours from 10 o'clock in the evening till 6 o'clock in the morning, that we require security on site based on the response. And I will just be honest, if we're incurring a lot of sheriff responses where this is going to go sideways very quickly. Okay, so I would believe it probably might be something that we could put in place from the beginning that will maybe get in front of some of those potential issues and not put you in jeopardy.
sure. I would be okay with maybe a trial period without it first, if it's deemed that, like, I feel that we have security handled, honestly. I put a lot of thought into it, I put months of thought into it, and I know that's absolutely your expertise and not mine. I feel that you should give me a chance to do it myself first, though. That's my honest opinion.
So under the conditional use permit and regulations, the conditional use permit calls out the opportunity for staff to impose security conditions on any application at any time at staff's discretion.
Yes.
Is that correct? It's correct.
I believe it's also written on there.
So if it becomes necessary to impose that on day 2, for instance.
I'll hire them on day 2.
Right. And if folks don't like that requirement, then they can appeal that to this commission, and if you don't like our determination of an outcome, then you get to appeal it to City Council for final. So that's the process.
Okay.
So as long as everybody understands where this might go.
Absolutely. Understood.
Go
ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I kind of feel that, especially for the weekend hours, if it's 24 hours, I think you should impose the security up front.
Okay.
Why wait to have a problem
Agreed.
to address a problem? It's better to be proactive than reactive.
Agreed.
And then you might jeopardize your CUP and all of this for what? So I personally would like to encourage you to go ahead with Mr. DiRico and implement security for the weekends.
Okay. Any more questions of the applicant?
I just want to clarify, that's what Mr. DiRico was saying. Were you recommending that, or were you saying that's an option?
No, I was recommending that
Okay,
be done.
thank you.
Deputy sheriffs are $2.29 a minute.
Mr. DiRico, how many calls on a normal CUP would you have to have before you would recommend that they have security?
Well, based on chronic nuisance or response, it's up to 5 already initiates a citation. So there's a process for that. It would depend on the business. Some would be appropriate, some would not. On this condition here, I believe based on what we have as far as resources that are even in the area in response to the boulevard are not, we're down to 1 car for this complete reporting district at early morning hours. So where on PM shift we have 3 and day shift we have 2. So I would say just based on that, if that unit's tied up, then we're going to be pulling resources in from other parts of the city to respond. Whereas if we have something similar to like what we have with our ambassador program with the Boulevard Association, it's not really, I really don't have an expectation you're going to have to put your hands on anybody.
I hope not,
I
Jesus.
would not like to hear that at all.
No,
What
I don't
I'd like
either.
to see is a positive customer service type mentality, okay, where we're
Absolutely.
being proactive with individuals that are coming there, that they're welcome there, and there's a expectation for certain behavior that's required there, and if someone doesn't comply, they're to be removed, and there's a process developed.
Absolutely.
So we could have up to 5 calls and then he would have a citation. But I was thinking that our applicant was saying that he's an airborne ranger, and I would like to, offer him the opportunity to at least try it on his own first. And if it did, go pear-shaped, then we could add it later. But I understand the resources and the amount of cost that it would be for the city, but it sounds like we have mechanisms in place. I'd like to respect his service and see if we could allow him, as the conditions are listed out, to be motioned first.
I would think we'd want to mitigate that risk because I think that's a liability. I understand and I hear you, Mr. Worth, but that's a liability you would not want to take on.
I'm surprised.
I don't mean
No, I know.
physically, I mean almost financially.
I understand.
If you know what I mean. So there's a lot of legality that comes along with that. So I'd be careful in wanting to take that on.
Yes, ma'am. I'm obviously willing to do whatever this council recommends to, but that was I have it in place. If it would make everybody feel better, I also have no problem doing that. This is going to be community center for the community. I want everybody to enjoy this place, everybody.
So just my opinion, this humble opinion, Mr. DeRico's been at this game for a long time.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's why we have him sitting here tonight as a subject matter expert to go to. And I think that a lot can be gained by leveraging his expertise in this manner, so.
Sure. Would it be able to give what you would want, basically, like on like a written form, or?
I would say it'd probably be a good idea for us to meet.
Sure,
at the
absolutely.
site.
Absolutely.
We can talk about some proactive steps
Sure.
that you might be able to do as it relates to SEPTED, security cameras, lighting, all those type of issues.
Sure.
And certainly want to work with you.
Absolutely.
And want to
Me
promote
too.
any business that's a positive impact on the
Absolutely.
community.
Yeah, I'm absolutely willing to do absolutely all that.
All right, thank you. Anything?
Anything else?
All right, thanks
Thank you
very
guys
much.
for your time. Thank you, council members.
Thank you. Do we have speakers?
Yes, you have one. Adam Chant?
Who is it? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the name. Mr. Chant, is it?
Yes, sir.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you. Chairman and Commissioners, my name is Adam Chant. Many of you guys know me already. And I am a partner at Battlegrounds, which is the gaming store on the Boulevard. So we have a similar business type. And I wanted to make myself available for any questions that you might have. I am in support of the business that's in question. And a couple of things I want to point out off Mr. Hall, the issue of the library computers was addressed. It's actually a First Amendment thing. We can't do anything about it. We've looked into it a lot. One of the things I would like to say, I am totally for the business opening up under the conditions that it's requesting. I will say that the 24-hour is a sticking point. As a longtime Boulevard business owner, previously I owned a vintage clothing store on the Boulevard, and now I'm a partner with Battlegrounds. We're not open 24 hours there, but we do obviously have long nights where we can have people still in the facility until about 2 o'clock in the morning. We generally follow the bar hours. Because we found that after those hours on the Boulevard, there's just not a lot of traffic. But with a lockdown type of situation and kids, I think it would probably be acceptable. And also, I want to point out that the software that he's talking about using is actually a really great software program. I've looked into it also. We do have incidental types of the same type of business at our part of our business. We do have a couple of gaming systems and things like that. So we are familiar with the type of traffic and everything that brings in. And it's definitely not a rowdy crowd or anything like that, unless you mean loud and throwing pillows. But there's not a lot of issues in that regards. And we do even have local transients that come into our place all the time and just relax, and it's never been any kind of problems. Even in the later hours, everybody leaves when it's time to go home and things like that. So I'm reassuring the commission that this is actually a really good idea. And if you do have any specific questions that you want an independent, he can vouch. I've never met him before. I have no idea. So he has no idea who I am. He probably had no idea I was going to be here. So if you guys have any questions.
I do have a quick question, Adam. You talked about the transients coming in and kind of hanging out until you close. Do you have a similar kind of age group that's in your business?
Our age group is a little bit different, but it's in that general area. We do have minors that come in, but our age demographic goes a little bit higher. Some of our, I'm over 35. I would venture to guess that our age demographic actually goes to about 45. But the board gaming might be a little bit different. The price point is pretty high on some of the stuff that we do and some of the gaming that we do. Some of our figurines run into the hundreds of dollars for some of the specialty action characters. And I mean, in my regular 9-to-5 industry in the aviation world, tons of guys that I work with hang out at battlegrounds too. So that's, we're talking about 40-year-old, 35-year-old engineers, that's how they spend their expendable income, is on playing video games and board games and collecting the characters and the figurines that go with that. It's actually a really, really lucrative, retail business.
So have you had any problems with transients or people who don't belong there when they do come into your business?
No, in fact, I had more trouble in Vintage Styles Now than we ever had really with Battlegrounds. I mean, I think Lee could vouch how many times you've had calls for Battlegrounds. I don't even know, other than non-relevant.
I mean, I would say this, that's something we're currently working on and addressing. Obviously, it's been a hot topic. Okay, the reality of it is that Adam was quite proactive on the front side of dealing with issues as you recognize them in front, which early on we worked very hard at with the Boulevard Association and recognizing those issues and being proactive. I think it comes and goes. The reality of it is I think the concern is having minors in place where we have certain groups of people, and I think we could go into a whole discussion about this as like we did the other night on homeless. Who truly is our homeless population, that being the concern? Some folks are more aware of what that actual population consists of versus what traditionally it was thought of. And that would be a concern as well for me, based on minors and some of those individuals that I know exist in that population. I will say this, I want to work with anybody that wants to do that. Let's look at those measures. We can certainly be reasonable and fair, and obviously the goal of the city all the time is compliance, not to be punitive, and that goes for my department as well. So we want people to be in compliance. So obviously we're not running around hoping to cite everybody we can, and the public has an idea that we make money doing that. That's certainly not the interest and not the direction from our council or Mr. Bozigan. So whatever folks are out there and what exists, we'll deal and identify what those issues are. If it's something that's impacting the business we can address, we will address it. At the same time, there's accountability for each individual business as well as far as being responsible to the community.
Well, I do, know Adam's background, working on the Boulevard Association with him.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I
in
forgot
the
to mention
past.
that. I was on the Boulevard Association board.
And I think Mr.
Previously.
Worth, I think he'd be a really great mentor because he is extremely passionate about, the city and the Boulevard in particular, and has a great deal of experience. So I think that would be a good new partnership for you.
Yeah, we just recently at the last board meeting, and like I mentioned, I'm not on the board anymore, but I'm still involved in the process. They did mention that we are creating a program where we're joining current business owners with new businesses coming into the downtown and helping kind of get the feel of how things are going and what we expect, what we've experienced over the years on the Boulevard. I mean, I started in I can't remember, it's 5 years that we were open as Vintage Styles Now, 2011, 2012, I can't remember. But it was like 5 years, and then I transitioned over to Battlegrounds. And that's the one thing that I'll talk to Charles about, is I'm going to actually put myself out there, like Ms. Smith said, that I'll be more than happy to be the representative to help him, both in the SEPTED stuff, which I worked a lot with Merrill and everybody on the board, on the Boulevard Association, and Lee, to help, with that process. Absolutely, especially since we can totally relate to our businesses because they're very parallel. I mean, like I said, we incidentally provide this almost similar services. And the other thing I want to say is when the commission thinks of arcade games, I think that's an antiquated legal term and how it's defined in the city municipal code. We don't put quarters and slot. I mean, we still have vintage arcade machines, one or two around, or like Sandy's phenomenal Zoltar, where you put the little dollar or quarter in and it spits out your fortune. Well, there's one of those around, but mostly it's actually a computer, and you present your money to the cashier up in front, and then you're provided hours, and it's all managed through software.
Thank you, Adam. Do you have anything?
I just have a couple of comments. First of all, I'd like to applaud you for stepping up for someone you didn't even know. I mean, you get the idea what the city's coming from as far as being business friendly, and by the way, being more strategic, because we want to come from a place of being safe as well. So I do applaud you on behalf of this commission.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you broke the ceiling with the Zoltar comment. We're going to have to double check and see if Commissioner Smith has her license to operate that.
Well, I was going to mention that I know a good place to get your candy and soda, but I didn't want to push my luck. So.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right, anything further from staff? Go ahead.
Yes, got one more card, Mr.
Oh, all right.
Chairman. Fran Sarasaris.
All right, thank you. Welcome back, Fran.
Thank you for having me. I was just concerned, nothing was mentioned, since you're going to have youngsters in this area. What about their curfew hours? Aren't they all have curfew hours, that they have to be home, say, by 9, 10 o'clock? I mean, are they going to be allowed to stay there all those hours, 24, day and night?
You know, that's a question I can't answer because I'm not up on that relative to our municipal code. Maybe Mr. DiRico can address that for us.
No. Okay, the lock-in thing, if there's some event, the parents sign a permission slip, that might be something, but typically, minors under the age of 18 need to be in the presence of an adult during this time, so obviously if they're with another person and it's approved, then they can be. If they're on their own, no.
No, okay.
Good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything further, Mr. Ludicky?
No more cards, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay. All right then. Anything further from members?
I'll move,
Before we do, shall we close the public hearing without objection and consider your motion?
okay. I moved we adopt resolution number 17-23, approving conditional use permit number 17-20.
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Were we going to impose that additional condition, or?
No, I wanted the motion on the floor as it is, and then we can vote it up or down.
So, you ready to vote, folks? Please vote.
Motion as presented passes 4-2.
All right. Then it's approved.
Thank
Good
you.
luck with your business.
Thank you for your service, Mr. Worth.
Hoorah.
Oh.
Great. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Before we start on the next items, I had asked our Assistant City Attorney earlier, actually on Friday, and also today. We have the next 3 items on our agenda. Items 7, 8, and 9 are regarding medical cannabis cultivation. These are primarily warehouse projects that fall underneath, under the 2 regulations that the Planning Commission reviewed and made recommendations to the City Council relative to the medical cannabis cultivation within our community as directed by the City Council. The Planning Commission held a number of hearings and developed with staff and the City Attorney the medical cannabis cultivation ordinance and licensing process. Through that process, ultimately, we made a recommendation to City Council. City Council deliberated on it, made some modifications, and ultimately adopted the regulations, which we as the Commission are obliged to administer. Like any other municipal code regulation, we have the obligation to administer it directly as they are written. However, our decisions relative to conditional use permit and any other application before us are rather subjective. We have to make specific findings, however, and we will conform to the ordinances as the city council has adopted. My questions to the city, assistant city attorney, were these. First question was, what criminal sanctions relative to federal, if any, are we, the commission, exposed to by voting either in favor or not of a conditional use permit application addressing these particular three? Secondly, what civil exposure, if any, are we exposed to by voting in favor of any of these conditional use permits? And probably more importantly, what specific protections does the city provide to commissioners regarding their duties, including voting on matters that may be considered as a violation of a federal law? And any other guidance that the assistant city attorney or city attorney would care to offer us. So based on that, request to Ms. Corbett Friday, I believe she's prepared to respond.
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to the potential criminal liability under federal law, it's such a remote connection that the likelihood of the Department of Justice going after commission members for voting, for approving or disapproving certain permits based on an ordinance adopted by a city council is so remote, it's so slim that I don't think you need to be concerned in any way about criminal liability, certainly at the state level and nor at the federal level. I don't think that's an issue that you really need to worry about. With respect to civil liability, as you know, people are litigious these days, and cities have deep pockets, and anybody can sue for virtually anything. And if the city is at some point down the road sued for something related to the ordinance, the implementation of the ordinance, the approval or disapproval of any particular permit or license, it's quite possible that you will be named individually as defendants, as will the city council members and the elected officers of the city and so forth. But you are afforded protection under the governmental immunities section, specifically section 820.9 of the California Government Code, provides in pertinent part that members of locally appointed boards and commissions are not vicariously liable for injuries caused by the act or omission of the public entity or advisory body. So that's pretty clear that you, acting within the scope of your duties as commissioners, that you are afforded immunities and that protection. I did also ask our paralegal to check with our insurance and look over our policies, and as commissioners you are covered under our general liability, so you would both be defended by the city and in the event something went awry that would be covered as well. So I think you're as well protected as a body and individuals can be.
Thank you. Appreciate your looking into that on our behalf and clearing up that matter. Anyone have any questions? All right, very good. All right then. So the public hearing is open on item number 7, which is conditional use permit 17-16.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I am recusing myself on this vote. One of the restrictions we have as planning commissioners is asking people for campaign contributions for yourself or others within a certain time period. As you know, being involved in campaigns, does happen to be one individual involved in this project that helped out a candidate for me. So I'll be leaving the room.
Thank you, Mr. Mercy. So Mr. Mercy will leave the dais and he will rejoin us after the public hearing and whatever action we choose to take.
Is it only for item 7?
Apparently so. All right, we still have a quorum. So, the public hearing is open. Applicant's Foxfield Industrial Center. I'm sure we have the applicants here. We have speakers, I'm assuming. May we have a staff report, please? And before you start, I failed to mention that we received on this application tonight, which we hadn't seen previously, a 20-page plus document dated August 11, 2017 from State of California Department of Fish and Wildlife, our almost most favorite people, commenting on the negative deck. And I will tell you from the beginning, I haven't had an opportunity to read it, but I'm sure you'll address that, Ms. Swain.
I was just going to clarify a couple of things. That packet that you got is not just Fish and Wildlife. So it includes Fish and Wildlife, the Air District, Caltrans, and 3 Native American tribes. And those were comments that were received at various points in the process, and I'll actually address all of them for you in the staff report.
All right,
and I can go into greater detail afterwards if you need it.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, please proceed.
Chairman Vos and Commissioners, CUP 1716 is for a proposed 583,000 square foot industrial facility for the purpose of cultivating and manufacturing medical cannabis. The project site is approximately 32 acres and located at the southeast corner of 47th Street West and William J. Barnes Avenue within the Foxfield Specific Plan Zone. The proposed development would consist of 9 30,000 square foot buildings and 5 60,000 square foot buildings, along with buildings for security and storage. The cannabis cultivation and manufacturing buildings would be divided into units ranging from 8,200 square feet to 35,000 square feet for separate cultivation and manufacturing tenants. These buildings would be of concrete tilt-up construction and would not exceed 24 feet 6 inches in height. The storage and security buildings would be substantially lower. The proposed development would be fenced with a 7-foot wrought iron fence that curves outward at the top to prevent individuals from climbing over. Additionally, 2 retention basins would be constructed at the northwest and northeast corners of the site to address stormwater runoff. Each unit would have a block wall enclosure containing necessary mechanical equipment and separate areas of HVAC condensers and trash enclosures. Loading areas would be provided at the rear of each building. A total of 535 parking spaces would be provided throughout the development, and landscaping would be provided, including along the perimeter of the site, around each retention basin, and throughout the parking area. Access to the project site would be via 47th Street West through a manned security gate. All employee and deliveries would access the project site from this location. A secondary access for fire department purposes would be provided from William J. Barnes Avenue. The site configuration would ensure adequate traffic flow throughout the development and between the buildings. The applicant would be required to construct or install curb and gutter, base and paving, street lights, street trees, and sidewalks along both 45th Street West and William J. Barnes Avenue. The applicant would also be required to install Class 2 bike lanes along William J. Barnes Avenue. The proposed project is anticipated to be constructed in a total of 6 phases over 5 years. The first 5 phases would have 3 10,000 square foot cultivation tenants, 1 22,000 square foot cultivation tenant, and a manufacturing tenant. The final phase would have 5 10,000 square foot cultivation tenants and 3 manufacturing tenants. Construction is anticipated to start in the spring of 2008 and conclude by the 4th quarter of 2022. The proposed development would use various methods of air control to prevent the spread of odors beyond the facility walls and to combat offensive odors within the facility. These methods include charcoal filters, ozone generators, and closed-loop aeration systems. The applicant's technical experts are present and available to explain these methods in detail. Deliveries to and shipments from the facility would occur during normal business hours Monday through Friday. It is anticipated that each tenant would have 1 or 2 cannabis shipments per week. The city's medical cannabis ordinance establishes distance requirements between medical cannabis cultivation facilities and uses identified as sensitive uses. A medical cannabis cultivation facility shall not be located within 600 feet of a religious assembly, residential use or residentially designated property, a public park, or within 1,000 feet of a public or private school, college, or university, or a daycare. The proposed facility meets the separation distance requirements. The project site is located within the boundaries of the General William J. Fox Airfield Land Use Compatibility Plan. Specifically, the project site is located within an area designated as Zone D, primary traffic patterns. The land use plan establishes certain requirements and restrictions based on each zone to ensure that development within the plan area is compatible with the operation of the airfield. Zone D establishes the following restrictions: airspace review required for objects over 100 feet, maximum average density of 150 people per acre, maximum density of 300 people per acre, and an open land requirement of 10%. Some projects require the review of the Airport Land Use Commission. On July 3rd, staff for the Airport Land Use Commission was contacted and informed of the proposed project. Based on subsequent conversations, a formal review application for the project was filed with the Airport Land Use Commission on July 25th, 2017. On August 1st, the city received a letter from the commission stating that the proposed project is consistent with the Land Use Compatibility Plan, subject to 4 conditions that they identified. These conditions have been added to the conditions of approval for the proposed project. Mitigation measures have also been included on the proposed project for air quality, biological resources, hazardous materials, and land use. The initial study for the proposed project was circulated for public review, and responses from 3 public agencies were received: Caltrans, the Antelope Valley Air Quality Management District, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. The letters from Caltrans and ABA-QMD reiterate existing requirements and do not require modifications to the conditions. The comment letter from CDFW raises a variety of issues with respect to desert tortoise, Mojave ground squirrel, stream beds, and burrowing owls. These issues are not applicable to the proposed project based on the biological assessment that was prepared. As part of the preparation of the initial study, Native American consultation letters were also sent out in accordance with Assembly Bill 52. Responses were received from 3 tribes: the Colorado River Indians, San Fernandino Tribe, and the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians. The letter from the Colorado River Indians tribe defers to other tribes and makes no specific requests. The San Fernandino tribe requests consultation due to the presence of cultural resources. However, no cultural resources were identified on the project site in the Cultural Resources Survey, and the tribe did not specify their concern as required under AB 52. A response letter will be drafted and sent to the tribe stating that the city believes consultation to be concluded due to failure to identify specific concerns. The San Manuel Tribe of Mission Indians has requested that they be notified of any cultural resources, if any cultural resources are identified during construction, along with other requests that are part of existing law. A condition will be added to all grading and building plans, notes added to the case file, and inspectors informed that the discovery of any cultural resources on the site requires notification of both the city and the tribe. And I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
There may be some. Thank you. I have, so the comment period closed today?
At 5 p.m.
So, the comment period closed today. You just suggested, if I understood you correctly, that comments need to be responded to. How does that impact our proposed recommendation action tonight?
What do you mean comments need to be responded to?
That the comments to the whichever tribe it was you talked about, and Fish and Game.
So there's no requirement under CEQA to respond in writing to a mitigated neg deck, unlike.
What's our policy, though?
We
respond-
typically do not.
Okay.
In response to AB 52, that's part of the initial study process, and the city does respond, and has in the past to this particular tribe with the same type of letter. They send a form letter every time and do not provide specific.
So getting back to the question, how does that impact the decision tonight relative to the process of responding after the close, but subsequent to the proposed action? Assume for a moment that we deny the project, or assume for the moment we're going to approve the project. Responding to an environmental comment after the action that have an effect on our action.
No, not in this instance.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Good. Thank you.
Good answer.
If you'd like more reason why, I'll tell you.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay. As Jocelyn indicated, there's not a requirement in CEQA to do this on a mitigated negative declaration. What we're doing as staff is merely providing that to you. The idea on the mitigated neg deck is that you have all of the comments that were made. Staff is providing the response, but unlike an EIR, there is not a formal requirement to respond to the agency or entity that made the comment.
However, the proposed action certifies the environmental document and the comments we just received today.
Yes. So what we have done as staff is we've reviewed those comments, provided to you what we believe is the proper situation on them that will allow you to move forward should you choose to do so.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
You said the start date was 9 years ago. Is that, I just wanted to clarify, it's supposed to start in 2018.
Spring of 2018 would be the first phase.
In the letter from Fish and Game, they talked about impacts to groundwater. Did your neg deck deal with that?
The initial study does cover water usage, and they would not be pumping water. They would be obtaining their water from District 40, and that would be per our existing policy that they pay for the amount of water they need, and District 40 goes and acquires that.
It says District 40 will supply water to the project and that no groundwater or groundwater recharge water resources will be used. Is that what
District 40 gets their water from a variety of sources. The policy as it exists now requires a developer to pay the $10,000 deposit in order to obtain the water they need, and they get that water from somewhere else, and it's transported via AVEC and provided to the applicant.
They also said that it was supposed to take 6 gallons of water per plant per day. I guess that's going to be a question for our applicant.
The applicant can answer that better. They do have water estimates that were on the title page of the site plan, and that is mine. So projected daily for the entire site, and it looks like, I think it says phase 2, is 28,102 gallons.
So this application tonight isn't our first one that's been before the commission. We did it last month.
Correct, but this is the first one that's been a new build.
A new build. I was just curious how many people in the audience knew that we've already okayed one project.
I don't know.
More questions?
Anything else? Anyone else?
So you already okayed one partial?
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Pardon me. You'll get your chance. Go ahead.
I guess my question was more so from when we talked to the actual applicant, because there are
All right,
501c3.
We'll invite them up here in a minute. So, Ms. Swain, you are indicating that based on this 14-page letter, comment letter, the principal issues are desert tortoise, burrowing owl, hydraulic impacts, whatever they may be, hydrology impacts, whatever those may be,
Do you want me to go through each impact?
and what else?
Mojave Ground Squirrel
Mojave
Special
ground
Status
squirrel.
Plans.
So, based on all the studies that you required of the applicant prior to this in the initial study, there's no evidence of burrowing owl, desert
No.
tortoise, nor Mojave ground squirrel, even though nobody's ever been able to figure out how to identify one, because I haven't found one since 1900 and what?
Well, it's been a little more recent than that. If you want, I can go through each of the issues, but
But the point is, all of the studies that were conducted do not have any indication of significance whatsoever.
correct.
So, we can then, with confidence, make a finding of conformance to environmental requirements as recommended.
I would be comfortable with that.
All right. Just for the public's knowledge, we had in our packet a copy of the staff report, which Ms. Swain just went through. We have a copy of the applicant's application, which includes quite a number of documents, including a business plan, as well as all sorts of projections and design requirements. We've received architectural plans, engineering plans, landscape plans for this project, which is very typical for any sort of industrial construction. We also had hand-delivered notices of this hearing to all the neighboring properties that are occupied, which is over and above what the public noticing requirements are. We have copies of the Medical Cannabis Ordinance 17.43, which we're very familiar with. We also have in our packet a copy of the findings that we're obliged to make, and we also have a copy of Ordinance 5-56, which is the ordinance licensing process. We also have an odor mitigation plan and some technical data on the proposed air handlers and methods of air exchange and that. So it's rather complete, rather lengthy, and very thorough. Appreciate staff's efforts putting all that together, and certainly the applicants. One of the things that impact this project and all of these proposed medical cannabis cultivation facilities is that the applicants have to be a nonprofit. They also are required to pay fees and costs to the city relative to their operation. And they also demonstrate the opportunity for employment within the community. So when the applicant comes up, I'm sure he or she is going to address those items for us. So we have the applicant. We also have speakers. Mr. Ludicky?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
How many of?
Several of them have multiple cards, and I would make a suggestion that because they have not identified in some cases who may be applicants or technical experts to applicants, that perhaps we would ask for applicants and their technical experts to speak first.
That's typically what we do, certainly. And as I mentioned in the beginning, if, I'm not sure everyone was here when I mentioned it, the applicant and their folks have an opportunity to address us and tell us about the project on a timeline that we will tolerate. That could be short or long, depending on how attentive we tend to be. But as I pointed out, the application that has been filed is extensive. This commission and these members have studied it thoroughly. So we're up to speed on the paperwork side of it. We'll be happy to hear the applicant and any other experts that they feel they need to share with us. And then we'll hear from everyone else who wants to speak to us. And then the applicant will have an opportunity to rebut if they care to. So let's hear from Mr. Seelan, I am assuming. Robert Seelan? You look familiar, sir.
Yeah, we just saw you recently. And this is.
I will point out to the audience and disclose to the audience, not on this particular application, but on application number 9, which is the conditional use permit 17-18. I asked staff to arrange for any member of the commission who cared to view the proposed projects in person, and those tours were arranged. I went on one, Vice Chair Hall did. I'm not sure who else, however.
Commissioner Cook and myself.
I see. So we appreciate the opportunity to at least understand project number 9 here. But at any rate, so Mr. Seelan,
Yes.
you and your spouse and team came to us way back almost this time last year.
Yep, almost a year ago.
Almost a year ago as a representative of, if I'm not saying this right, I'm sure you'll correct me, as a representative of the industry, the medical cannabis cultivation and sales industry, I guess you'd say. And
That's
you
correct.
represented clients. You also gave us the opportunity to actually go visit an operating medical cannabis cultivation facility as well as a retail operation, which some of us took that opportunity as well. And you brought before us the sort of outline of the proposed medical cannabis cultivation ordinance. And we had lots of time together and lots of hearings thrashing through all that, didn't we?
Correct.
Right. But now you're the applicant. Explain to us how that happened.
Well, there was, the reason we came here a year ago, and we've been working in the space, and you mentioned my wife is sitting there, who will be the applicant on the next CUP. But we've been working, first of all, we're real estate developers. We've been real estate developers since the mid-'80s. And so we're familiar with the process of building ground-up construction, have done it in many cities throughout Southern California. But about 10 years ago, just really through a fluke, we were invited to start getting involved with the medical cannabis industry, and primarily in Los Angeles. And it really started, and I won't go on too long of a tangent because this could be a long evening, but with a magazine. And we got involved with publishing a magazine. My wife was the editor, I was the business guy behind it. And we started meeting people in the medical marijuana industry, even though there wasn't one. It really didn't exist back then. There were people that were doing their best to try to deal with patients. And there had been a law in the books in California since 1996. But the state had never done anything about it. City of LA had a big problem, which is just starting to get fixed right now. So when we came to meet you and came to meet the city, well, we've had a need. We had clients that had businesses in Los Angeles. San Diego was just starting to kick in. There were cities out in the desert areas that were starting to think about this and trying to do it, in our opinion, not necessarily correctly, but trying to do it. So when we approached Lancaster, it was because we had a need. We had clients that needed a legal place to cultivate medical marijuana under California law. And then the proposal was to have you guys consider adopting an ordinance, and that's where we started working with staff and everybody to try to get that done. So now, fast forward a year, we have several clients that knew we were doing this. We came to lobby for them, came to lobby for the industry. We're involved with an association called UCBA, which is an association in Los Angeles of legal Prop D medical marijuana dispensaries. The one that a lot of you visited is one of those. And they need a legal place to cultivate. That's really what this is about. So not everybody has money or is a real estate developer. It's not easy to do what we're trying to do. And I commend staff. They've done an excellent job ciphering through, learning as we have, working together. And so now we represent a group of clients that need a place to do this. So we've secured 2 separate locations. Right now you're hearing about Fox Field. It will be a ground-up construction. We have tenants that will occupy the space. So the way it works is, someone asked about the structure. The entity that is doing this is a nonprofit mutual benefit corporation. The laws are evolving now, so you will have an opportunity, should you choose in the future, to amend your ordinance to allow this to be like a normal business. But right now, everybody has to be nonprofit in the state of California. Still, it's nonprofit, even though Governor Brown has signed a trailer bill recently that indicates that it's otherwise. The state hasn't officially adopted a change from nonprofit to for-profit, which is imminent. It's going to happen. So we've met all the criteria to comply with current laws by doing it in a nonprofit entity. But the plan in the future is to come back and see if you will amend the ordinance and have it just be normal business. These are tax reporting, full tax reporting entities. They pay all their state taxes. They will pay all the city taxes that you've already mentioned. And so that's why we're here now. We have clients. One will speak on the next CUP. He's not a client, he's a tenant that need the space. So Lancaster has now done an ordinance that will allow them a legal place to do this.
Very good, thank you.
Do you mind if I add just one more thing? I think a very important thing for our clients too was to make it a secure space away from other businesses in the city of Los Angeles. You know, your abutting businesses and commercial zones. And so the idea for this project and the next project you'll hear about is to have a completely secure lockdown facility with no entry, no public access.
Very good, thank you. So the structure and what we've been able to discern from the business plan and the way the ordinance was ultimately adopted by the city council is that there is a, in this case, Foxfield Industrial Center, the 501c3 organization, is the master developer in effect. As you develop the facility in stages over time, you will then lease those spaces to various cultivators. I would point out that you've conformed and are currently approved to be licensed under the city municipal code. You've met all the qualifications relative to those licensing requirements. That license is not, would not function until you have an approved conditional use permit, however, right?
Correct.
So, and then all of your tenants then must also conform to the licensing requirements as well.
Yes.
So it's not the Wild West out there.
No, and in fact, by the way that we've done this is a campus. This is not different than, I look at it as a studio. If you've ever been to Universal Studio or Disney Studios, there's a point of access which is fully guard gated at all times, 24/7. There's armed guards. You don't get in unless you have permission to get in or you're a tenant. And we've tried to, as Katie just said, we've created an environment where it's a safe place to do this, where nobody gets in and nobody gets out. without knowing who's on the campus at any given time.
Moreover, each tenant will be live scan, background check, and submitting their own employee permit.
Correct.
Right, which is the requirement of the ordinance, and that, I mean, that's
But I've
a
had to
lengthy
take- I've
process.
had to take a live scan. I passed my live scan. So
Me
that's
too.
why we're here.
Me too. Well, I think you had to get your license to practice law, didn't you?
I don't think for that, but when I was a baseball
Yeah,
coach. I
yeah,
had-
you had to have your fingerprints taken, I think.
Oh,
It
yeah,
wasn't
that
live
for
scan
sure
in
when
those
you're admitted
days,
to the
right?
bar.
Right.
And then I did coach youth sports.
Right.
So.
Right. All right, very good.
So I was curious about the cultivators or tenants, as we called them. Are they for-profit?
No, right now, they're all not for profit. You don't have to, under the state of California, without getting hyper-technical, be a non-profit entity. You had to, under Proposition 215, which was 1996, and then codified under SB 420 by the legislature, I think, 2004. You had to operate not for profit. Those are the words. And when they drafted in 1996 the law, they were worried it wouldn't get passed. So those were superfluous words in the opinion of the writer, the drafter, Senator John Vasconcellos, who I knew passed away a few years ago. Never intended it to be non-profit entities. But that's the way it's been interpreted. It's the way the California Secretary of State has interpreted it. So that's the way everybody's been formed.
When do you anticipate the state will change the rules and allow for-profit?
Any moment.
Any moment? And then would you be back before us asking?
Passed yet?
Well, the trailer bill has language in it that allows for-profit, which just passed, that's SB 94. There's another bill, what is it, AB 64, that explicitly allows businesses to be for-profit, so that everyone has the understanding. And it should be passed soon, prior to January 1st,
It doesn't make a heck of a
2018.
lot of difference, because the way you operate we try to operate a for-profit business, that's our intent. A not-for-profit or a non-profit can be structured to pay out all revenue to various employees.
And that's the way,
officers, whatever.
the one
So,
that you visited, that's the way.
It's a fallacy.
Yeah. No, but actually the one you visited, they do. They have a IRA account for each person. They have benefits. They have health insurance. They do put the money back into the business. I can't speak for every single person, but the one that you saw, that's what they do.
Right.
So the next question that kind of pops up for Ms. Corbett would be, the process then would, I remember your hair was on fire when we were writing the original. Harried, maybe. And so what would the process be to amend that? We would have to come back in later, and then that could open all kinds of other cans of worms, making it recreational too instead of medical?
You would amend the ordinance the way you would amend any other ordinance, either at the direction of city council or at your own initiative. Staff might, bring a proposal to you that you would then direct them to flesh out. All the various ways you would amend any kind of an ordinance, but that would have to be obviously an affirmative decision, A, to allow for-profit, and B, to consider recreational.
And that would arise probably from our applicant, that they would do like they did originally and start talking to staff and saying that they wanted to make a change. And so what would be your trigger to come in and want us to do that?
Well, go ahead.
Well, if I may, I believe the ordinance, if I can remember correctly, says that businesses must operate as nonprofits until the state allows otherwise. So considering that the state does now with the trailer bill allow otherwise, that would be at the staff's direction to, I guess, notify the planning commission that
It happened.
state, yeah, it happened.
If I might, I'm sorry, the city attorney was, and her firm is the one who actually took their model and drafted that ordinance or customized it to the city, so I'm not intimately familiar with all of the words the way I am when I write it myself. I would have to just read that and confirm that. I can get back to you on that.
Thank you.
I don't know that it automatically rolls
But I think,
over.
as you pointed out, it would either it would either come back to us, through us, or on the city council's own motion, which, if it's a cleanup, I would imagine, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see it. So,
I'm presuming,
and really, that's not,
you would, but I, we weren't trying to trick anybody.
Ms. Campana and Mr. Ani are in-house experts. They're probably better informed and know more about the medical cannabis cultivation business as any staff member in this state, I would say. And we're very proud of the work they do and rely on them, certainly for what they've produced for us to make our decision.
I agree wholeheartedly. They did a wonderful job.
So, at any rate, any other questions from you? Ms. Smith? No? Nope?
I think I just want to reiterate what you brought up is I think it can be misleading, not-for-profit. You know, it leads people to think of a charity, and there's no charity watchdog groups keeping an eye on this, you know, because people aren't giving to that, expecting them to provide a service back, if that makes any sense. So I think that's where you differentiate between what people think of as a nonprofit.
It's been self-governing, just so you know.
Right.
People, there's been no watchdog at the state level.
Right, I mean, there wouldn't be, right? There's not, people aren't making donations to you hoping that you're providing a
but
charitable
at the end of
service.
the day, it's been illegal to operate for profit.
Right.
So.
Right, exactly.
They were our clients, and we had anything to say about it, they didn't operate for a profit.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, anything else you'd care to offer?
We have an architect, engineer, construction people, any other questions, technical questions that neither of us could answer.
If we have them, we'll ask you.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions in that regard?
Matt from CES did want to speak about the water.
Yeah, there was a question about
There was a comment about how much water is going to be used, and I think it'd be really helpful if he provided that information to you.
So how much water do these tomatoes require?
That's out of our pay grade.
That's the expert.
And you're also an expert on the filtration system?
That's correct.
All right. I'd like to hear more about that.
All right, very good, thank you.
You want to call them out of order? Okay, thank you.
Yep.
First, I want to thank you for having me here.
And your name?
I'm Matt Johnson with CES. CES stands for Cultivation Efficiency Systems. We're a firm that's a mechanical firm that focuses on design build for these projects, as well as our cultivation experts provide value of setting up their business plans, their workflow, their designs. Basically, our experience, we've been very fortunate. We've kind of started at an early time where Colorado was calling us, Washington was calling us, and they needed system integrators and to get their projects over to the finish line through code. And some of these clients, just on a short background, were pretty prestigious: Hawthorne Scott's Miracle Grow, O'Neill Clothing Brand, a pharmaceutical company in Quebec. But ultimately what it comes down to are the concerns of odor mitigation is, what is the proven and effective methods? What's our approach in applying them? And what's our thought on keeping this maintained and active so we don't have any issues or complaints? Our effective methods that are adopted through Colorado, Washington, every state we run into, the go-to is the carbon filtration. There's a lot of different filtration methods. My partner, Robert Herzig, that's our mechanical engineer, he's worked in the Silicon Valley and worked with a lot of caustic materials that you have to remove before it gets introduced into the regular public. And so it's not something that's anything new to us. Carbon actually is the most effective carbon, comes from cocoa husk. And when you're looking at odor, it just can't be a simple HEPA filter. It's actually smaller than a micron that you have to remove. And so we're really looking at this as a molecular level, and our molecular filtration experts that we've been working with in the past are experts in this. And so how do we apply that kind of proven method? Typically, when we do a design plan, we label areas on the plan that are going to be odorous. All the odorous areas like cultivation areas, dry rooms, processing areas, trim rooms, manufacturing, those are all going to be typically labeled odorous. In those areas, it's very important to not only maintain the whole building as a negative pressure, but specifically those areas of negative pressure from a mechanical standpoint. If it's positive pressure, there's concerns that some of this odor might leak through the baseboards out of the building, and there's just no way to recover that and how it leaks into the public. And so what we maintain is those areas that are labeled odorous or negative, and all air for occupancy, whatever we supply into that room, typically it's 0.15 cubic feet per minute that's maintained for occupancy. Every air leaving has to go through a carbon filter. So all air leaving this building, negative, is going through this method. Typical maintenance is, there's run times on these fans. We always recommend preventative maintenance on all of our mechanical equipment, which do have measurement gauges to send through our cloud or server control system to the operator when it's time to change it. We always recommend some sort of SOP that's involved to maintain these filters. And so we always recommend that they take on a preventative maintenance contract with a filtration expert that replaces some of the filters that are necessary to keep this operation going.
Thank you.
How do you dispose of the filters?
So the carbon filters are typically right now in the industry are kind of a scrap. It's generally the run times that are used at that slow of a volume. There's going to be some that are at a higher CFM rate that need to replace more frequently as 6 months, but majority of the filters literally can last about 2 years. So just like in any commercial facility where you do have a preventative maintenance contract to maintain these mechanical equipment, HVAC units, the filters are swapped out and they are scrapped.
Would any of the filters trap any of the tomatoes? And would they be considered something to mine later on for more product?
No, there are things that you could definitely salvage from the plant through manufacturing processes, like all the trim and all that. But the actual particles that are smaller than the micron being removed from the air, we haven't found a purpose for that yet. But they bind to all the carbon, and the carbon's disposed.
So your pamphlet says that the clean room, their ISO clean room conditions, does that mean that there's some sort of from an environmental perspective, like an ISO 14001, or are you certified, or?
What's typically done for that kind of standard is where we've pulled it from clean rooms of what that standard is in removing filtration. Hospitals use ozone, they have a certain standard. It's very similar to that. So our units use a MER 14. They have a pre-filter, MER 14, UV sterilization lights. The air that's being removed for occupancy purposes out of the building is basically using the same kind of standards for that.
But not certified is, what's my question?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, thank you.
Not in this industry yet.
Thank you. Anything further?
If I were to add on the topic of water use, there was a statement that was used 6 gallons per plant. Typically it's 6 gallons per 25 square feet of canopy. What that kind of equates to is a 1/4 gallon per square foot. Fortunately, cultivation efficiency systems is all about energy efficiency, but at the same time, really taking a green approach. Our systems repurposed through humidity control, the condensate recollection, which represents about 60% of the water use that's fed into the room. So it's really quite substantial. We're really proud of it. So when you're having 22,000 square foot canopy and a 1/4 gallon per square foot, if that's used, it's really no different than what a brewery would be set for beer. You use a lot of water. It's really no different producing a product here. But it can have an impact, and anything we could do to reduce that impact is our goal.
Thank you. Anything further? All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
You have speakers, Mr. Ludicky?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. David Paul.
Mr. Paul, welcome.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, good evening. What a well-attended event. I mean, this is a really great crowd. I like what's going on here. I was spacing out a little bit, Mr. Ludicky, during the general plan amendment, but when you got to the traffic survey, I thought to myself, I thought by 2035 cars were supposed to fly. So I guess I was thinking in the old days, but that's where I was on that. I just wanted to come tonight because, you know, I came the last time and we gave birth to a project, and tonight we're having triplets, and it's just an exciting time in this city because this is really going to help our city. And I am so impressed with all the work that's gone into this, all the studies of the staff and just the people that are putting this on. It's been quite impressive, and it is the future, and we need to get to it. So I stand here tonight in total support of it, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Just going down the list, these people may or may not wish to speak. Lisa Seelan. Brian Glidden. Sean Belschner. Craig Pearson. Those are the only ones that I had listed as if you have a card. Are you in favor, opposed, or neutral?
For.
And the name, please?
Hi, my name is Loretta Miller.
Is what? I'm sorry?
Loretta Miller.
Miss Miller, welcome.
I'm originally from Houston, Texas, and I was very much against marijuana for a very long time because you would do 6 months for half a joint, and my husband used to smoke it, and I didn't want to see him go to prison. So then I got really sick, and I'm very disabled, and I go into like a fetal position with pain. And so I went to a pain clinic, and they just threw oxycodone at me, just tons of it. And I am smart enough to know that that's addicting. So with that being there, and my pain, and to where it was so bad that there were days when I just didn't want to wake up. Period. And so they kept saying, oh, you got to try this marijuana, it'll help with pain. And I just thought, you know, you could have a broken fingernail and they're going to give you a marijuana, right? So I was so against it. And then my girlfriend turned me on to a little edible that's a lime. It's like a gumdrop. And my pain, it helped me to sleep instead of using sleeping pills. And it helped with the pain. And it helps, but it doesn't make you wasted. Now, there is stuff out there that makes you wasted. I don't like to be wasted. I don't like medication. I don't like drugs, period. I'm highly against drugs, and I'm highly against addictions. I would say that if it's used properly and the way they've advanced it, it has come a long way from the old days. And I'm for it. And one other thing I'd like to say is I did have some land that I bought by mistake in Desert Hot Springs. And I bought it so I could be next to my friends so we could take care of each other because we're single women and marriage just isn't something that's going to happen in California for us. And so bottom line, we're straight. It was just men don't want to get married. So, and I don't blame them in California because in Texas you don't pay alimony. So anyway, the bottom line is that what I wanted to say is that I had some land. I bought 1/3 of an acre at a mistake, and it's trash land in Desert Hot Springs, just trashy land. Been paying taxes on it going, oh, you know, because I thought I could put a house on it and be with my girlfriend. They go, oh, no, it's industrial. You got to put a 7-Eleven, this or that. I didn't know if I had 1 acre, 2 acres, or whatever. Bottom line, in January of 2016, they did what we're doing now. And my land dropped. You couldn't give it away at $4,000 for 1/3 of an acre. Couldn't give it away. And in January, I had a hip replacement, and they called me up, and all of a sudden I was offered $90,000 for 1/3 of an acre. And then I picked up the phone, and this lady goes, oh, no, honey, that land's worth $130,000 minimum. And then it went up, and I got $140,000 for it. So I just wanted to say that. I find that it's helping with Desert Hot Springs, who has a very bad economy, and it's helped me to pay my house off so that I don't have to worry about losing it anymore. So all I can say is God bless for the people that are behind it, for people like us that are sick, that deal with severe pain, because it's not addicting. There are many things wrong with it. You don't drive on it, but it's better for you than liquor, I think.
All right,
So
Ms.
that's
Miller,
all.
thank you for your comment.
And thank you for the time that you're doing for us. Thank you.
Now, another speaker?
Yes, Scott Stearns.
What was it, Scott?
Stearns.
No.
Richard Marcella.
Mr. Marcella?
Good evening.
Good evening,
Gentlemen,
welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, it's an honor to be here. Thank God for some common sense and reality. This whole question about pot, it's $1 trillion, and with a T, $1 trillion industry. And this is the ground floor. Show common sense here because the world's watching us. I'm going to give you a touch of history about this. This movement is one of the biggest political movements in the whole wide world, and at least talked about by mainstream media. You mention a country, a state, there's activism everywhere. We owe a very special thanks to a gentleman who wrote a book called The Emperor Wears No Clothes by Jack Hara. Well, that book was released in June 1985, and that was the seed, the catalyst for the birth of the modern hemp movement, which is one of the biggest movements in the world. And because of that book, Australia, Canada, Germany, England, and several other countries growing industrial hemp. And that's why 17 states in this country have gone medical marijuana. Now we've got 8 that have gone totally legal. And you know what it is? It gets me, they talk about the aspects of it. Well, the only thing we mostly hear about is the medical and the recreational. There's over 50,000 different products can be made from the hemp plant today. It's food, fuel, fiber, medicine. It's the world's #1 renewable resource. We don't have to cut down another tree. We can make paper from it, a much better paper that they cut down our forest for. Oil, they can take the seed of the plant is 35% oil. They can squeeze it out and recatalyze it back into gasoline. And in this book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, on the back, $100,000 challenge to prove any of this information to be wrong, what I have quoted from this book. And it goes on. There's a great history. This plant goes back 10,000 years of history. But because of this stupid drug war, they've hidden history. It feels like 1984. Well, don't talk about it. George Washington grew it. Thomas Jefferson grew it. It was mandated by law. I'm sure, most of you people have heard this information being quoted. You know why? Because of the book that Jack wrote, The Emperor Wears No Clothes. And up to this date, this book has sold around 900,000 copies worldwide. Time's up. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Keep up the good work. We say hemp, hemp, hooray. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Marcel. Do you have another speaker?
Yes, Michael Griffin.
Mr. Griffin, is it?
Mike Griffin had to leave. He's one of the board of directors. Mike Griffin had to leave. We're on the board of directors on the Fox Field Industrial Park, which is adjacent to this project.
And your name, sir?
My name is Dwayne Mead. Dwayne Mead?
Join me. All right, thank you.
I'm one of the business owners and building owners that is basically adjacent to the project here.
Right.
Good evening. Basically, our concern is, we're not real clear on the water. Is there going to be any effect as far as the water output for our buildings? Really, that's about it. The only other concern we really have is the security. When you hear about cannabis plants, of course, you got security issues. I know they're going to have kind of a lock and key environment there, but I'm concerned about the surrounding businesses. We have 3 shifts. We work sometimes 24/7. So we have some concerns about the security.
And we'll ask the applicant to respond to that, and staff will also respond. Typically, we take all the input and then respond.
Yes.
But just to clear it up, we can address the security plan that has been proposed is a confidential document. It's not a public document for obvious reason. It's been reviewed by city staff, by Mr. DiRico and his staff, and I'll ask him to comment on those results and recommendations. If you would, Lee.
Yes, sir. Mr. Bose, the security plan that was submitted was beyond the minimum requirement that was required through our conditions and set forth by the ordinance. Based on how it was submitted, there'll be monitoring of that, also with folks from the Public Safety Office for compliance. It's significant, I can tell you that much. And again, based on what Chairman Vos said, it's not for public view because obviously there's some concerns related to that. But I will tell you that it's been reviewed inside and out, and certain requirements were put in place beyond what would be typically required just based on the size of this particular project.
Why?
So if you compared this operation to what used to be Brinks, I think is Brinks still in business, or Loomis, or one of those? How would you equate it? Pretty close?
Yes, sir. I would say very close, maybe more stringent.
Maybe more so? Yeah, 24/7 armed guards is pretty serious stuff.
Yeah, that's for the inside, but for the surrounding areas is where I'm concerned.
Right. The entire proposed campus.
Yeah.
And your other question related to water utilization.
Yeah.
The water purveyor for this is LA County Water Works District, I believe. And the service agreement is between the applicant and the water district. The applicant is required to conform to all the requirements of the water district. We don't control the water district.
Yeah.
They're required to pay whatever the appropriate mitigation fees may be, and they're required to comply with all the water works district requirements. So, and before they can get their permit to build, let alone occupy. So, I don't know how else to answer your question.
Okay.
Mr. Mead, were you what was your organization you represented?
It's the Foxfield Industrial Park. So we're
Industrial
based,
Park.
we're right off of Avenue G and 45th West.
Did your outfit send out a letter, like we received a few? We got one from Airport Land Use Commission.
No, we just got this form. It seemed like everything just kind of went real fast as far as the.
But you got the notice of this meeting.
Yes, yeah, that's why I'm here.
Okay.
Yes.
That was a question I had last in the study session. Was there any other people like the California National Guard that responded to the?
Yeah, they're here.
Yeah, they're here.
Yeah. Or we're here. I don't know if he's still here. Yeah, there he is.
And it kind of messes up my view to the LA County Air Show. It's kind of right back of my building, kind of faces the air show, so there goes.
You mean you're going to have to buy a ticket then?
There you go. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other speakers?
Yes, Mr. Berrigan.
Master Sergeant Bergen. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Master Sergeant Miguel Angel Barragan. I'm with the California Army National Guard Recruiting Command. The first picture you showed up here, the proposed project is right next to the National Guard Armory here in Lancaster. Okay, I have a recruiter there. I also have another recruiter in Palmdale. Okay, I have no problem with them trying to build this project because last year I had one of my sisters passed away from cancer, and I know she had to use some of the medical marijuana that helped her out ease her pain when she passed away. Okay, the only problem I have with this right next to the armory, right next to a military state federal building. Okay, it's going to give a negative view if we have a place like this right next to it. Okay, that's the only concern that I have, especially what the gentleman just said a little while ago about the crime in the area. It is going to bring crime in the area, especially around the building, around the armory. We have weapons in that armory, okay? And I know we have we do security checks all the time, but I know if that alarm system goes off, the police are going to come by and they're going to check that area out. So there's a concern of that the crime rate is going to go high around that area. Okay, I don't know what they're planning to do with the residue of the marijuana plant, how they're planning to dispose of it. Okay, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be thinking about how am I going to get into that building. Okay, because I know plenty of people that have military training, military background. It won't take them that long to go into that building and take it out and get all the stuff that's in there. Okay, so my concern again in regards to the drug use that's going on in this area, I know because unfortunately I have a little brother that's addicted to marijuana, unless it's for recreational uses. But I also know there's a good thing to marijuana that does help people with medical needs. The only issue I have is this. It's right next to the state federal building. If they can move it to a different location, miles away, I have no problem with that because I know something good is going to come out of it. But again, right next to the state federal building, when it comes to military hardware, weapon systems, that kind of stuff, it's like a negative view. If we start calling people, hey, come make an appointment with us, our National Guard is right here, and say, oh, it's right next to the medical marijuana place. It's like, yeah, it's going to be kind of negative towards us, and that's going to affect our recruiting numbers, especially right now with what's going on around the world. Next couple of months, this, it's going to be said a lot. Okay, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Cool.
And thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you.
Care to comment on that, ladies and gentlemen?
So its location, the project site has to be, it can't be identifiable. There's no signs designating it as a cannabis facility. For all intents and purposes, there should be no way that anybody knows that that facility is there. Obviously, unless they've seen public hearing notices, but it shouldn't scream cannabis cultivation facility. I don't, people's perception of its location against the National Guard Armory, I don't know how to answer that. I know it was in the paper today. I don't know how many people actually read the paper, but
Well, I have 11,000 paid subscribers during the week, I think, and what is it, 19,000 on weekends or something? It's kind of skinny coverage, actually, unfortunately. Well, some of us served in the military. Some of us have families that served in the military. Some have children that are serving in the military. And I hear what he has to say. However, projects by this ordinance are confined to industrial areas for a purpose. And the purpose is that they are really unidentifiable, if you will, industrial buildings. There are no signs, there is no advertising. The security is at an extremely high level, And historically, I don't know about historical data on impacts of crime related to medical cannabis cultivation facilities of this magnitude or of this high level of security. I'm not aware of it, so we're out in front on this. So we're going to do the best that the city council wants us to do.
Well, on our trip to the Canoga Park cultivation facility, they showed me a room that would take a raid on your National Guard armory and do a Thunderbolt and Lightfoot type of thing to break through the walls that they had around some of the sensitive areas. It was very well protected.
Besides the on-site 24/7 armed security. But again, we're not privy to the exact detail of the security plan, and we must rely on our director related to the public safety aspects of this.
And I can offer that the compliance issues will be continuing. So that will be ongoing as part of the result of the permitting as well. Those fees directly relate to that.
So when these facilities are up and running and inspected and periodically visited for compliance?
Yes, sir.
That's what's anticipated.
Continuing, yes. There will be specifically assigned personnel that will be their sole role as it relates to these individual businesses.
Yeah, the interesting note, and in the documents that were provided to us on the application, it's interesting to note that, and the applicant really hadn't mentioned this, that full build-out for this particular project produces a little over $1.5 million per month in job revenue at build-out. That's a while, and that's assuming the business plan is adopted and actually is implemented. And the city revenue from the fees and charges is well over $1 million a month. So a lot of revenue will flow into this community and into the city government to provide law enforcement services and other benefits to our community based on the business plans been submitted and the application before us. Do we have other speakers, Mr. Ludicky?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Anthony Myatt.
Is it Mr. Myers?
Myatt.
Myers?
Myatt, M-Y-A-T-T. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the commission for allowing me to speak here this evening.
Welcome.
I am opposed to this measure. My basis for my opposition is what this meeting began with. This commission began by talking about possible conflicts between state and federal law, and did so, I thought, very eloquently. I'm very happy that you took that in consideration. I was worried that perhaps that had not been considered. I'm very grateful that you did consider that. The problem, as you know, is that under federal law, there is no distinction made between recreational and medical cannabis. Learner Council here has minimized possible exposure to commission members, and I'm not trying to say that she does so on purpose. I'm sure she's done her homework. But still, we are talking about conflict between state and federal law. There is no guarantee that at some point the federal government will not come in and shut this entire project down. There's just simply no guarantee. And I'm sure that even council would agree with me that there's no guarantee that individual members of this commission could be held both criminally and civilly liable for any activity arising from such a project. You have thought about this before. I thank you so much for stating your concerns. I ask you to give it even more consideration before making a positive vote in favor of this measure. Thank you very much, and I cede my time to the other
Thank
speakers.
you very much for your comment. Other speakers, Mr. Ludicky?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Stephen Carlson.
Mr. Carlton, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Mr. Myatt just gave a great introduction. I'm here to voice conditional opposition. The big presence, and I won't make reference to a particular animal, but the big presence in this room right now is represented right behind your left ear, and that's our federal government. The cultivation, processing, distribution, possession, and use of marijuana remains a violation of federal law. That tension between state and federal laws creates some very unique conditions. One of those conditions, a particularly important one, is in the handling of revenue that you just mentioned. There are significant issues in Colorado, which has been in this process a little bit longer than we have, as far as legalized marijuana, not necessarily medical, but that is, what do they do with their money? They can't put it into federal banks. It's a violation. So it's a cash industry. Businesses, if this is approved, businesses will be operating in violation of federal law. And employees, potentially 750, we're told by today's newspaper, will be asked to violate federal law and to face uncertain consequences, such as being unable to deposit their paychecks into federally insured banks. Until those issues are dealt with, I would ask that you be proactive and responsible in pursuing those issues and coming to working with Kevin McCarthy, who is apparently working on this issue of banking, or Representative Perlmutter from Colorado, who's also working on it. Because right now, it's not just about exposure of individual members of this commission. It's about exposure to the community. Those people who will be working and doing, what are they going to face? What difficulties will that be? We have the issue of crime. There's a reason why it has to be armed, because of, at least 2 green commodities. And so that's an exposure. I would ask that you be proactive or responsible, work with Kevin McCarthy, work with the city council, and come up with a plan, a detailed and then well-publicized plan for at least addressing the provisions and the cautions of the Cole memo that was issued in 2013, which is currently the position of the federal government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlton. Do we have another speaker?
Yes. Joel McKay or Mackey?
Is it Mr. McKay or Mackey?
McKay.
McKay. Well,
Commissioners and Chairman, thank you for giving me the honor to speak before you. I come unopposed. I'm 20 years retired law enforcement, and I've seen the effects of marijuana on our youth and through. And medical marijuana does have its medicinal purposes, but I could take any one of you to any doctor and get you a card. It's not regulated. It's a farce. And I still have friends who are working in Kern County. Kern County, I don't know if you're aware of, they have 22 medical dispensaries within Roseman. They're not good neighbors. They're allowed to stay open. The marijuana industry is very well regulated. Like you said, they're going to be making $1 million a month. They can afford the attorneys. They're paying the thousands of dollars fines each day to stay open, and the county can't do nothing. They've already said, what concerns me is they're nonprofit now. They say they're going to come before you and ask for a profit. What happens when the law changes in 2018? We don't even know what the law is, and they're allowed to sell out of an industrial. They're going to come back to you and ask you for a sales permit. When you say no, they're going to be tying up the city of Lancaster in court for years, and they're going to be selling while they're fighting you in court. I brought an article that was in the LA Times from July. Their experts are already saying there's anywhere from 5 to 12 times the amount of marijuana produced and consumed. And when it becomes regulated in 2018, they're saying that a lot of that's going to end up on the black market. It seems like we already have enough medical marijuana in the state right now. We're going to be adding to the problem. And some other security concerns I have, being in the field, are we going to be having $10 an hour security guards working at these places who aren't trained? You said earlier that they're going to be getting shipments. We have a park over there. Criminals aren't your smartest cookies in the cookie jar. What happens when they attempt to hit a shipment out there on G, and the shooting takes place in the park out there, and we have family and kids? That's an area where people bring their kids to go fish in, play with the ducks, walk the park. There's all kinds of security concerns with coming and going. And I thank you for your time and listening to my concerns.
Thank you, Mr. McKay. Have another speaker?
Yes. Kimberly Sigmund.
Didn't hear the last name?
Sigmund.
Kidman? Ms. Kidman? Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. I am a Youth Substance Abuse Prevention Project Coordinator at Tarzana Treatment Centers, and I also represent the Antelope Valley Marijuana, Alcohol, and Pharmaceutical Prevention Coalition. And while we're not diametrically opposed to this, because we do appreciate that this brings business into the community, we are cautiously opposed. We have seen, with the opioid epidemic, a real rise in the belief by a lot of people that opioids are safe because they are legal for some people to use. And with, a permissive state and community attitude towards a drug, this leads to an increased acceptability and level of use specifically by youth. And likewise, the decriminalization of marijuana has led to an increase in youth marijuana acceptance in youths in California. There was a study done by the National Institute of Drug Abuse, and it found that 12th graders in California were 25% more likely to have used marijuana, 20% less likely to perceive regular marijuana use as a risk, 20% less likely to strongly disapprove of regular marijuana use, and 60% more likely to expect to be using it within 5 years following decriminalization. And our own data for the Antelope Valley for Tarzana Treatment Centers shows that cannabis makes up 54% of the youth admissions to our residential treatment programs and 85% of the youth admissions for our outpatient. And it continues to be the most common drug used in the Antelope Valley, and we held focus groups within the last couple of months, and we were repeatedly told how easy it is to get marijuana and how socially acceptable it is. And so with medical cannabis cultivation and manufacturing now starting to occur in the city of Lancaster, we're just concerned that youth may develop a skewed perception about the legality of cannabis and dismiss the dangers that cannabis, even medical cannabis, can pose to their developing brains. And we're very concerned about the distance of the lots in all of the conditional use permits to parks and schools. They might be more than 600 feet, but they're within half a mile to 2/3 of a mile from Apollo Park for this one, for the following two to Boys and Girls Club, Paiute Middle School, and Mariposa Park and School. So we just would urge you to keep that in mind, that these surrounding areas and the fact that these sites may become known to youth or criminals, as the last speaker said, who might try to access the marijuana growing in these facilities. So we're just urging you to consider these risks when you take your decision this evening, and please consider the implications the city could face when you vote today. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Kidman. Thank you.
Those are all the speaker cards
No
I
other
have.
speakers? Other than the applicants, okay. All right. Mr. Seelan, you care to rebut, respond, answer a few more questions? Thank you.
Want me to go, or do you have an order you'd like to go in?
Well, your project is proposed for basically three levels: cultivation, manufacture, and transportation, ultimately.
Yes.
Ultimately, the product comes in a form. It is grown, it is harvested, then it is either manufactured or transported or both,
Yes,
right? That
all that, correct.
kind of the business?
Yes, it's packaged, and then it goes out for
Right.
distribution.
So, first of all, talk about how it comes in.
Well, first of all, it's grown there. So when it the very, very beginning, it starts in these little plants that are called clones that nobody plants from seeds anymore.
Little tomatoes.
Same thing. Yes. And so they're going to need to bring it in from somewhere, and a lot of the people that are in the business already have nurseries, or they already have cultivation somewhere. So they're going to propagate these clones, and they're going to bring them in. Once they do that, most of them will set up their on-site nursery. So I'm not an expert in cultivation, but I know that the steps are, they have the clones that grow into the plants that get bigger, and then when they're full grown, they get transplanted. Those are the plants that become everything that you just mentioned, turned into products when they extract them, packaged up, that go into the stores.
So how are they transported? How are these products transported? The finished product, whatever
They're
it is.
transported, like you said, almost like a Brinks type system. These are armed carriers. It has not been fully worked out by the state yet on distribution. They're still working on distribution licensing and exactly how that's going to happen, but it's discreet, and that's why there are armed guards going in and armed guards going out. The good transporters that have been doing it a lot longer than I've been even around the space know how to do it. They have people in front of them, behind them, and they know how to deal with it. But now it's going to the next level where Teamsters are going to be involved, and the state is kind of deferring to others that transport pharmaceutical drugs and other different methods to finally get it into the supply chain. Has not all been worked out yet, but it's been worked out, and there's people in this room that know how to do it already.
So assuming, for the sake of the conversation, your application gets approved tonight, and it's not appealed, and, 30 days from now, or 20 days, or whatever the time frame is, you have the ability to pull a building permit and start construction. The soonest you'd be in operation would be sometime next year.
Yes, optimistically.
Optimistically.
The spring, summer next year.
By then, the state will have established all of the unknowns beyond what we already know relative to the cultivation, because what we're dealing with is strictly the cultivation, manufacture of the product, whatever that product is. If, whatever the gentleman said, 50,000 products,
I don't know.
whatever.
Yes, there are lots of them.
Whatever they are. But from the time that, between now and the time you're in operation, the state of California will have established the guidelines, regulations, licensing, permits, all the other things that your organization will require to be able to meet those standards before you can ever open the door.
Yes, absolutely, and we didn't really talk about it when I first spoke, but in order to be in this business, you have to have a local license and a state license. State of California just didn't start doing this yesterday. They've been working on this for years. It's culminated in the current laws, but they didn't just start thinking about this yesterday. They've been working on it for a long time. There have been stakeholder groups from outdoor growers up north, from indoor growers down here, from dispensaries, from product manufacturers, very comprehensive, that have had input into the process in the state. Lancaster is new at it, but will benefit by what the state's already done. But no, we're not fooling around with this, and the points are well taken. It's dangerous. This is a Schedule 1 narcotic, and we take it very seriously. The security plan, which you've seen, was written by the man that ran the entire state of Colorado. He wrote the RFP for all of the tagging, which every plant that's going to be in our facility or any facility that's legal in California has to have an RFID tag on it from seed to sale. So once these clones get transplanted, they get tagged. Tagging will be available to LA County sheriffs, they want to look at it, the reports that come out of it. Certainly the state of California inspectors will be able to come in without any notice and inspect to make sure every plant is tagged, every plant that's put in the system is accounted for, and then they have technology to know if there's one plant missing. They'll be able to search the facility, and you'll have to be accountable. Somebody mentioned waste. Waste has to be accounted for. It's part of this metric system that just got approved by the state of California. Same system that's used in Colorado, Oregon, and other states. So this has been well thought out, but the points are well taken. It's true. It has to be taken very seriously. That's on that issue.
What about the concerns raised by your neighbors, the adjacent businesses and the National Guard Armory?
And again, points well taken. This is a completely fenced and secure facility. We have people from the CIA that have worked on our plan with us. We have the person, like I mentioned, from Colorado that's worked on this. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're trying to make it better, but we're not starting from scratch. There are procedures, protocols, SOPs that are in place from day one, or nobody comes on the property. And that's both sides, whether it's the armory or the facility next door or the park down the street. This is a very well-secured facility.
Can I talk about waste real quick? Just to get a little more specific about waste to address the sergeant's concern, is that all waste by law must be, prior to disposing of the cannabis waste, it must be mixed with 50% other material, rendering it unusable prior to being dumped in the trash, which must be secured and locked. And then, as Bob said, everything also must be documented, the weight of that. So it is traced all the way until it enters into the trash, and then you must specifically call to have the trash transported off, from the locked premises that the trash is in, which it is rendered unusable because of the 50% waste, and then it will be transported off of the facility. It's going to be dictated within a matter of certain amount of hours or days.
You say mixed with another material. What type of material? I mean,
mulch.
Like, they haven't specified, but like
It
other
neutralizes it, so it's
neutralized trash. So
really-
you can't smoke it, you can't
It's like
cure
having a
it, you
bale of
can't.
hay mixed in with it. It would be very difficult for someone to really get high off it.
thank you.
And I don't know what the procedures are yet. A lot of talk about federal law, and again, points well taken. There are a couple pieces of legislation out there. One is called the Rohrabacher Bill that has already passed, which defunded Congress from enforcing laws in the medical marijuana space, where states have robust marijuana laws, medical marijuana laws. Does not protect anybody in the adult use recreational space, but it does afford protection for people like yourselves, like people working, the 750 employees. I'm not quite sure where that number came from, but it's a number that we probably bandied about over our conversations. There is protection for them, because right now, there's no money to go after them. There's no money for the federal government right now to go after people that are in the medical marijuana space that have been raided by the federal government. Cases are getting thrown out. So there's no money for it. Can it be put back in? Yes. Will it get put back in? Your guess is as good as mine. This is medical. So we don't want to confuse apples and oranges here. When I said earlier we're talking about a for-profit business, the state's already done that. state's done recreational. Lancaster, as well as what we have proposed, is not recreational. We've only proposed medical. We're not asking you to change that. That's what we're doing. Talked about tagging. Let me go through my points. There is a report, if somebody cares to read it, and I don't know the last time it's been updated, about safety around dispensaries. There's not enough data or history around cultivation facilities because they're brand new. Colorado might have the most history, but there's been studies done by UCLA Public Policy and Berkeley Public Policy Schools that stated that they have found in their research that around well-lit and secure dispensaries, not cultivation, there's actually less crime. There's armed guards that we're talking about, there's lighting, there's fencing. So there's actually been less crime around legal marijuana dispensaries than in the past, what we're hearing about people getting hijacked in parks and all that kind of stuff. There has to be a plan. What we have proposed is a plan that we plan on enforcing. We were talking about the zoning. Somebody brought it up already. You know, when we first were discussing the ordinance, and I'm talking about opioid use in Tarzana treatment centers, and we know about Tarzana treatment centers. There's one not far from where we used to live in Tarzana. That's where they started. And we fully support their work. So it's not about that. But there was a recent report, and I don't know if we have a copy of it here or not. I think I probably was going to bring it. We may have it. That in medical marijuana states, opioid overdoses are down by 23%. Because they're finding that even though marijuana, some perceive as a gateway drug, and I'm not making an opinion about that today, but marijuana as a choice for people using opioids has actually saved some people's lives, sounds like. And it's an article. I'm just passing on information.
I wanted to address a couple more points. There was one point made about 5 to 10 times the amount of medical marijuana being cultivated and that can be used. But I do want to point out that people in the industry let me say that cultivated marijuana has not had strict regulations on testing as they do now with the new state laws. So there's an estimate that 70% of marijuana being cultivated currently will fail that test, will not be into the system, and will be rendered unusable because of the pesticide standards and regulations that will be in place. So our goal, like we've mentioned before, is for our clients to have pesticide-free, clean, cultivated medical cannabis to provide to their patients, knowing that it passes all state standards.
Okay, banking. Banking's starting to happen, and it's been very painful, and whoever made the comment about cash and lack of banks, that has been true. Now, in Colorado, there's credit unions that are banking the businesses. In the state of Washington, there are credit unions banking the business, and we are now interviewing them, and they've actually opened a client of ours recently. The UFCW, United Food Commercial Workers Union, has its own credit union and has unionized, I don't know how many, Lisa probably knows, about 15 or 20 stores in Los Angeles. They're starting with dispensaries. They just opened our client, one of our first clients. They've just opened them on the condition that they are good dues-paying members of a credit union, of a labor union, excuse me. So unions are coming in. So coming into transportation with Teamsters, UFCW, which has an office here in Lancaster, who I've already spoken with, will be here unionizing people, and they're affording their banking and other protections that they offer to their workers.
Additionally, on the money point, I just want to point out that money will not be transacted on site at this cultivation facility. Only nominal amounts of money will be held on site to pay for payroll or not payroll, excuse me, for running out, needing supplies. But the transaction that's going to be happening between the dispensary and the cultivation facility will occur completely outside of the facility.
The word's petty cash.
Petty
Sorry,
cash.
petty cash,
Correct.
thank
There
you.
go.
I was searching for that term.
I couldn't think of
Petty.
it. Okay.
I think
Any questions?
that was
Those
it,
are my highlighted numbers. I have a bunch of notes I can't read right now, but
Thank you. Anything? Nope. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Ludicky, anything from you and your staff?
I don't think we have any additional information unless there are questions.
No?
I have nothing else.
All right, thank you. All right then, what's your pleasure? Shall we take an action on this, or are you ready for a motion, any of you?
I move that we adopt.
Let me close the hearing first. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So then, we will close the public hearing without objection and consider a motion.
I move that we adopt resolution number 17-24 approving conditional use permit number 17-16.
I'll second that.
All right. Anything further? Please vote.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Good luck with your project. Commissioner Mercy will return, and then we'll take up the next two items. Commissioner Mercy has returned, and he brought snacks for us, not you.
Let me clarify. He actually brought Chairman Bose's birthday dinner, which is Taco Bell tacos tonight. Happy birthday.
Oh, Taco Bell. You had to throw that in, didn't you?
And we're having a party.
Yeah, we are. Boy, this is a great party. There's a lot of things I'd rather be doing. But this is important to our community, certainly, and we all dedicate a portion of our life to participate in this community service. So, you can go ahead and have your snacks.
I already ate.
You did? Pass this down to the city attorney. She's hungry. All right, next item. Without objection, the public hearing on conditional use permit number 17-17 is open. This is Master Collective, Inc., better known as Onion 2. So, who is presenting on this one? Mr. Hunt.
Yes. Chair Vos and Commissioners, the next case before you is conditional use permit number 17-17. This is a request to construct 4 30,000 square foot buildings, one 23,821 square foot building for the operation of medical cannabis cultivation and manufacturing. In addition, 3 additional 2,597 square foot storage buildings. This is in the heavy industrial zone. All extraction equipment would be a closed loop operation, which was previously discussed in the case before this. Prior to commencement of operation, the medical cannabis cultivation facilities, city personnel will conduct site inspections to verify that the facilities fully comply with the submitted application, all applicable environmental, building, electrical, zoning, and fire codes, security, and accessibility requirements. There would be a security patrol officer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and a real-time monitored camera system. The proposed facilities would not be open to the public nor provide public parking. Employee parking and delivery vehicles would have access to the parking lot controlled by a 24-hour guarded entry through a gate off Avenue H6. In addition, a 7-foot tall wrought iron fence would be placed along the perimeter of the project site. A detailed security plan was submitted by the applicant, reviewed by the city's Public Safety Department. Based on a review of the security plan, the Public Safety Department issued a memo stating that the plan conforms with the requirements for video surveillance, alarm system, signage, lighting, commercial-grade locks, and around-the-clock on-site security staff. In terms of the separation distance requirements, there is a school located within thousands of feet of the storage buildings. However, these separation distances are measured from the corner of the cannabis facilities to the nearest property line of the sensitive use. The storage buildings are not part of the cultivation facilities and therefore do not fall under the separation distance requirements. Looking at off-site improvements, the applicant would improve Division Street, Avenue H6, and Trevor Avenue to have curb gutter, sidewalk, streetlights, and a Class 2 bike lane. A new landscape parkway and meandering sidewalk would be constructed along Division Street and Trevor Avenue. A new sidewalk would be constructed along Avenue H6 to align with the existing sidewalk. A retention basin would be constructed to address runoff. The proposed exterior elevations consist of painted concrete tilt-up panels and blue glazed glass. With that, staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 17-25 approving CUP 17-17 is subject to conditions of approval. That concludes staff presentation. Staff is available for any questions.
Thank you. How many speakers do we have on this one, besides the applicant?
If everyone, well, I think some may no longer be here, but you'd have roughly a dozen. That includes
All right, very good, thank you. So, Ms. Seelan, I assume you're presenting. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You know,
Is this working good?
this is new construction on a smaller scale, similar to the previous project.
Correct.
Keeping that in mind, you can share what you'd like to share with us,
Well, first of all,
considering the hour.
yes, and I'm going to keep it very short and sweet. Thank you all, by the way, for being here as long as you are and for working for this last year with, the commission and then going to city council and all the staff. You've been amazing, and I know this has been kind of a roller coaster ride for all of us, but we really appreciate all your efforts. The consultants, the architects, the engineers, everybody is identical for both projects. Security plan, identical person wrote it. So everything that's been done at the larger scale project, just shrink it down, same concept. Compound, completely secured. The goal is to keep everybody inside safe so they can have their jobs and their businesses, and everybody on the outside to keep them out. So I think that at this point, our goal would be, if the CUP is approved, that we would be starting our, plans and getting everything going into working drawings. And our anticipation is that the buildup for the vacant lots will probably be similar to the other project, where we would have occupation sometime in late spring, beginning of summer. So that is what our goal is for those buildings. And to date, we have 3 out of the 5 buildings leased, and we have 2 more in negotiations. So hopefully between now and the time we have our plans done, we'll have the entire project fully leased out. So that one will be providing income much quicker, even though we had, I think, a 3-phase on that. Right now, we think it's probably going to be more of a 2-phase. So we're very excited about it, and we're very happy that we've been working very strictly with the state. All of the proposed regulations are going to be coming down next month from the Bureau, from the Food and Ag, and from Public Health, that are going to give us a lot more guidance. They pulled everything back once the trailer bill came in, and all of the laws for medical and adult use will be identical in the way that they're implemented by the state, but it's going to give a tremendous amount of guidance to every one of the cities or counties that is going to be regulating this, because the state regulations are so comprehensive. And it's not going to be a industry for the weary. It's going to be very, very meticulous. Everything, I mean, they're going to have full-time people keeping records of everything in, everything out, weight, measures. It's incredible. I think a lot of people will probably fail the first couple years because it's so stringent. And it has been the wild, wild west. So we're really excited because we're bringing the cream of the cream here. We're not bringing in people that are going to fail. We're going to bring in people that have been in this industry for a very long time, that are looking for a very regulated market to be in. And I think that Lancaster will be very proud of these projects when they're up and running and providing jobs and income to the community.
Yeah, your performa talks about the city fees that build out and the job revenue.
Mm-hmm.
Very specific, and your performance based on a wholesale value, I guess, for revenue generating, right, a product?
Well, the product right now in an unregulated market is anywhere between, for indoor, I'm not talking about outdoor mixed light right now, but indoor runs between about $1,800 and about $2,600 for a pound. What we are anticipating is that amount of money will contract. It will get less when there will be more regulated product on the market. But what we have done is we have budgeted all of our leases and all of our people so that they will be able to afford the rents and still be able to afford to continue in the project even if the market starts to shrink below $1,800 to $1,600. We've watched very carefully the Colorado market, and we've seen the ups and downs that have happened, but we also know that a lot of people that have run very successful businesses that we have really worked hard to get to understand their models. That's how we've come up with our models, and it's been a very educational process for us too. So I think that the revenue stream will be good. I think we'll see that the first couple of years it will be better. I think that a little bit of the gross receipts will go down, but it will then taper off and level out, because I think the market will get flooded initially with a lot of people that think they can do this, and within a year or two they're not going to want to be in this market anymore. It's going to be too much, you know, it's not fun anymore when you have to keep track of everything. That's how they're going to look at it. And the people, and I'm telling you, there's that mentality of people that have done this without any responsibility or accountability are just going to want to not be in here anymore, and that's okay. I'm fine with that, because I think the ones that are going to survive are the ones that understand that every real industry in our country comes out of regulation and accountability and paying your taxes and your payroll taxes and providing really good working environments. And that's what we're all about. We're all about regulation and accountability.
So are your business plan didn't reflect actual market rate
I don't think
leases, however, would you care to comment on that? I mean, you talk about competitiveness. I mean, if industrial space is renting for 50 cents, where are you? Higher?
much higher. But the reason we're much higher is because we're providing a environment that you can't find pretty much anywhere else. If you were to get an industrial building in Los Angeles right now, first of all, there's no licensing for you. So you have to wait for the city to clean up their act, and they're moving very slowly. I promise you that, because I'm very involved in what's going on there too. But the reality is you wouldn't be in a campus environment. You'd be in a standalone building. You'd have to really be careful, because that's where you're worried about, your guards and protecting your building, because all you have are your walls. Here you have fencing. Here you have patrol. Here you have you have your own guards inside your unit besides the campus guards. So it's multiple levels of security that we're providing, which is expensive, but it actually is much more affordable. We have a lot of clients that are paying $4 and $5 a square foot right now for industrial buildings in Los Angeles. They don't even have power. They have to do power upgrades. Some of them don't have plans and permits pulled, because there are no plans and permits you can pull from LADBS, because it's not a sanctioned zone or use in the city of Los Angeles. Here, everything's going to be built to code. There's going to be all the ADA requirements. Everybody's going to feel that they're working in a very secure environment. We've been working very closely with LA County Fire. We've been working with your battalion chiefs and your city chiefs, everybody we've met with, and we're working to make sure that everybody has very secure environments to be in for fire and safety. And so we're very competitive because our market rate is less than Los Angeles, but it's more than Lancaster. And we feel that that's why we're doing well, because we're going to draw in the people that value this. And I think it's a good place to be.
So your product that you're delivering, your industrial building product that you're delivering besides the shell includes the tenant improvements as well as all of your
Part of it is paid by the
conditioned
landlord.
space.
No, it's a shared thing. The tenants come in and they build their own interiors because they all have specific needs. We provide the building itself, the facility for them, and then we work with them and their architects if they have their own. We have our own architect that has been doing this now.
So either turnkey it or somewhere in between.
We do both, whatever they want, and because and it's really piece by piece. We have 3 different tenants coming in to the next CUP because that's the fastest one we're going to get out, and all 3 of them are doing something a little different, but they're all doing it with plans, permits, architects, the whole thing. So.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Want to talk about sales tax revenue? There isn't any in cultivation, is there?
No, there's excise taxes paid to the state.
Yeah. I wonder.
Seven agents didn't do that anymore.
Pardon? You gave it up? That's right. So what is the franchise tax board doing these days? They're on vacation?
The Board of Equalization, we handle property and alcohol.
That's it.
Excise tax.
Well, the Board of Equalization changed its name on all of us, so.
Well, no, the Board of Equalization didn't.
No.
A new agency was created. The Board of Equalization still doesn't.
I'm glad you're
But they
still
will be
working.
collecting all the state taxes.
All right. Very good. Anything further from anyone? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Speakers, please.
Brian Glidden. Craig Pearson. Matt Johnson. Sean Belschner. Evan Matzner. Katie Podine. Scott Stearns. That's all I have listed as in favor, and I do have Stephen Carlson.
That's it? No one else? That's all you have?
That's all on this item, yes.
All right. Any additional comments from staff? No?
No additional comments?
Thank you. All right, then, without objection, we'll close the public hearing and consider a motion on this item. Oh, you do? How come you didn't throw a rock at me?
So
we'll leave the public hearing open.
a couple of questions. Well, 2 specifically. One, if you could go over in a little more detail the issue of the 1,000-foot requirement. And so there will be cannabis stored in a building that's within the 1,000 feet of the school. If you can explain how that works and what the code says and all that.
Right, there will be no storage of cannabis in those storage buildings. So that's going to be just equipment, soil, and packaging and whatnot. But no cultivation material or anything like that. No cannabis.
Okay. And the second issue I have really comes down to making sure that we comply within the ordinance that the city council passed, which there's still nothing from the state as to whether or not medical cannabis will be completely segregated from recreation, and what steps are along the supply chain to ensure that a distributor doesn't sell this to someone selling recreationally.
So, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get,
So
make sure that they're not.
have we gotten anything from the state that says clearly that there's some sort of policing mechanism to ensure that down the supply chain, something grown here will not be sold by a distributor to a recreational retailer?
We do not have that.
Okay. So I'm a little concerned and how we ensure compliance with the ordinance, given that we're basing this on the requirement, and the city was very clear that only medical cannabis be grown.
Not sure I can answer that.
Okay. Would you like
Stephen?
to?
Yes, I'll answer that for you. In the governor's trailer bill, when you get your state license, you either are getting a medical, which will have an M on it, or an adult use, which will have an A on it. Every plant you grow inside of this particular facility or you manufacture will have an M on it. The tag will have it, the product will have it, and you will only be able to distribute it to an end user that has an M license. So there's no way your manifest will be able to allow you to take what you have coming out of the Lancaster facilities anywhere other than an M end user. And that's already been decided in the governor's trailer bill. So when a license is given by the city of Lancaster, you can specifically say that you are giving an M license, which means it's only medical. It cannot be used for any other thing. So any product that comes out of here, let's say some of the cultivation then goes to a manufacturer, it can only go to a manufacturer that has an M license. So everybody on these two campuses, in the Onion plant, the existing and the vacant one, will have M licenses, and the state will only give them an M license, and then all the distribution will be an M distribution license.
But the regulations have still not been released.
The regulation itself has not, but the actual law has been written, and it actually tells you the types of licenses you can get in every single category. So for your category of cultivation, when you get a 1A, a 2A, a 3A, a 1B, a 2B, a 3B, that's indoor, outdoor, whatever it is, it will say an M1A, an M 2A, and an M3A. So the M will be on the product. The actual cannabis in a retail location, if it's a purely medical, will have an M on it. If it's a purely recreational or adult use, it will have an A on it. That's already been decided. That is very clear.
I've been with the state almost 20 years, and I've seen a lot of funny things come out of regulation, and I'm having trouble getting comfortable with this.
That's how Colorado does it, by the way. And if you look at any of the Colorado licensees, and sometimes they even have the same, you can have an adult user and a medical user in the same facility. Every plant is tagged, every product is tagged, either adult use or medical. And it's the Colorado method, and it's being taken over here. And it's been very successful in Colorado. And if you cross it, you lose your license. So it's really not a good thing you want to do here, because it's going to be regulated. Manifests are going to go out with every product. Every driver will have a manifest. The manifest goes into a computer. The State Bureau will have every single delivery going on statewide, and when it arrives at the end user, the manifest then gets entered into the system again. So everything's going to be monitored. I think it would be very hard to trick the system, because you either have an M or an A license.
Well, but we still don't know the system until those regulations come out in full.
Well, actually, we do know the system because it's Metric, and Metric is now in Oregon and in Colorado, and they've already established their protocols in Colorado, and it's been extremely successful. They won out every other RFP for the system. So the state was really very insistent on having an RFID. They did not want a barcode system. They find the RFID is much more efficient. A regulator can literally come into a cultivation. There could be 1,000 plants in there. They can wave a wand, and within 3 minutes, they can tell you every plant that's in that room. Same thing with when you're regulating it leaving this facility. Every manifest will have every barcode on it. Every RFID tag will be part of the barcode. You can actually do a seed-to-sale tracking for recalls and everything. Metric has been very successful, so we actually do have a lot of protocols that we can learn from Colorado.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I forgot you weren't here for the hour and a half we spent on the first
No
project.
problem. Thank you. I know you took a long time,
Been at the
and
taco stand.
appreciate
He was, yeah, he was
your indulgence.
goofing off at the taco stand. Is that what you were doing? Good questions. Thank you. All right. Anything further from anyone? So now we'll close the public hearing and consider a motion.
I move that we adopt resolution number 17-25 approving conditional use permit number 17-17.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Anything further? Please vote.
Motion passes by a 5-1 vote.
Thank you. All right. Next item is conditional use permit 1718. So without objection, the public hearing is open on this item. Better known as Onion One, huh? Ms. Seelan again? And this is the site some of us visited.
So Onion One is an existing onion plant. It has a 39,600 square foot cold storage building. That's a real big refrigerator. I don't know if when you guys walked in it was cold, but it is literally a huge refrigerator. And then there's an L-shaped building that is a dry storage. And then on the L part of it, there's going to be some offices, and the entire strip of the part that is opposite to the cold storage will be 2 manufacturing tenants. The existing cold storage right now has proposed plans before in our CUP for 2 stories. Right now, we're going to build out a single story to start. The reason why we want to get to market as quickly as possible, we want to get some funds flowing into your city, we want to get jobs created immediately, and so that's what we're doing, and then we'll anticipate the second story at a future date. But as we sit here right now, that entire complex is fully leased out. We actually have people that beg us all the time to come in and take that, and it's already been spoken for. The facility is going to be run exactly like the rest of it. It's fully fenced right now, and as soon as we have the remaining complex built, the fencing between them will come down, and it will actually turn into a single complex. The parking to the east of it is for additional parking for the entire complex, and there's already existing parking there, but there'll be more parking, so we've met all of the land use requirements for parking for the entire complex. And then the storage facilities, which are way down, which were part of the first one, again, just to reiterate, nothing cannabis, storage unit only for supplies, packaging, nutrients, extra lights, etc.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
We didn't ask for a staff report. We've already heard it last week. Ms. Campana has given me the stink eye over here because I didn't call on her. She's really not. But I'll let you give a staff report if you really want to. You really want to?
It's
Sure
up
you
to
do.
you.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Chairman Vos and members of the Planning Commission. This item before you is Conditional Use Permit 1718, also referred to as Onion 1, which involves tenant improvements to the existing building and new construction between two buildings for the operation of a medical cannabis cultivation and manufacturing facility. The facility is located at 220 West Avenue H6. The subject property is located on the southeast corner of Avenue H6 and Trevor Avenue and is zoned heavy industrial. The existing single-story buildings are approximately 55,000 square feet, and it would be converted into a multi-tenant cannabis cultivation and manufacturing facility. The proposed project consists of tenant improvements and new construction, up to approximately 53,492 square feet of floor area, including a second story and extension to one of the buildings. The new construction would match the existing building. The entire facility will be approximately 108,442. Improvements to the site include additional parking spaces, new landscaping to the parking lot, and replacement of the existing chain link fence with a 7-foot tall wrought iron fence along the perimeter of the property. There will be street improvements along the frontage of the project, which will include street lights, street trees, a new sidewalk, and a Class 2 bike lane. Majority of the operation would be for medical cannabis cultivation, and approximately 25% of the facility would be for medical cannabis manufacturing. All medical cannabis grown and manufactured would be conducted entirely indoors and would be packaged and shipped to off-site locations located outside of the city. The facility will implement 3 methods for air filtration and odor control, which will be charcoal-filled filters, ozone generators, and closed-loop aeration system, similar to the cases you heard before. As stated before for the CUP beforehand, prior to the issuance of any building permit, the odor filtration system would be designed and stamped by a mechanical engineer certifying that it complies with the code. Also, any detection of cannabis odor outside of the facility may result in revocation of the CUP. The building will not be open to the public, and the facility will be gated and secured. There will be a security patrol officer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Only employees and delivery vehicles would have access to the parking lot. A detailed security plan was submitted by the applicant and was reviewed by Public Safety. Based upon the review, a memo was issued stating the plan conforms with the requirements. The proposed facility is not within 600 feet of a religious assembly, residential use, or a park, and is not within 1,000 feet of a public or private school, college, university, or daycare. The proposed facility meets the separation distance requirements. Prior to the commencement of the operation of the proposed facility, city staff will conduct site inspections to verify the facility fully complies with the submitted application, requirements, and codes. Staff recommends that Planning Commission adopt Resolution 1726, approving CUP 1718, subject to the conditions of approval. That concludes staff's presentation. Staff and the applicant are available for any questions, if you have any.
I apologize for reversing the process. However, I have a goal of getting us out of here by 9 o'clock. We're going to make it, I think. I hope. All right. Any questions from anyone? No? Who all visited this? We all did.
Yeah, excuse
All
me.
of it, all of us but you.
Top secret clearance, no, sir, did not.
What's that have to do with the onion?
Did you visit? Oh, I looked it there.
All right. It's a unique facility for a interesting use. It really is. All right, Ms. Seeland, do you care to add anything? No, thank you. I saw you do this. Did you do this?
I'm fine.
You said no, right?
I said no.
Good. All right. So without objection, we'll close the public hearing. Consider a motion.
I make a motion to adopt resolution number 17-26, approving conditional use permit number 17-18.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All right. Anything further? Please vote.
Motion passes 5-1.
All right, thank you. Good luck with your project. Projects. All right. Director's announcements, Mr. Ludicky.
Very briefly, Mr. Chairman, as you alluded to at the beginning of the meeting, the City Council, in its action to introduce the ordinance for CV Community's specific plan, also gave another assignment to the Planning Commission to consider an appropriate approach, I guess, on how to form a community benefits what's the term? Agreement and a method to go about that. So expect something will be on your September agenda in regards to it.
Well, I have some ideas about it. I'm not going to belabor it tonight, but because we have a deadline here and we have 4 minutes to go. 3.5. So we add it to next month's September, whatever it is, 11th meeting agenda then, please?
18th.
No, the actual
18th.
special meeting.
Special meeting?
Add it to special
11th?
meeting
Okay.
as an agenda item, and then we'll take up a discussion on it. All right. Anything else? Anything commission agenda, ladies and gents? No.
Other than happy birthday?
Hmm?
Yeah, can we sing? Do we have time to sing? Yeah, we have time to sing, don't we?
No, you don't. No.
I'll make time.
No, you don't. Hang on a minute. I still have stuff I want to talk about.
Okay.
I'm going to use up all the time. Actually, I do have an issue that I want to put on the agenda for next month as well. It has to do with what I call, in my industry, bootleg pointer signs. Real estate signs that advertise the sale of real estate that aren't located on the subject property, that is either actively listed or not. In the public right-of-way, cluttering up the landscape all over our town. So one guy in the industry decides to put up a real estate sign that says, with an arrow on it, says, a mile away I got a listing on a house. And then his competitor puts up one next to his, and on and on and on. The sign ordinance requires those to be removed without notice in the public right-of-way. Now, nobody's doing it because nobody's asked about it or suggested that it's an issue. So I'd like it on our agenda, and we'll take a few photographs in the field, and some folks will lose their pointer signs. Maybe. Maybe not. You know, somebody might say that's freedom of speech or something. I don't know. Never mind. I'll be quiet about that. All right. So it's now 8:58, and we're out of here. We're adjourned. Thank you all. Adjourned till September 11th at 4:30.